Hello and welcome to And the Runner-Up Is. This week on the show, we're talking the 1997 Best Actress race at the Academy Awards, where Helen Hunt won for her performance in As Good as It Gets. But why did she beat fellow nominees Helena Bonham Carter, Christie, Judi Dench, and Kate Winslet? We'll explore all this and more today on And the Runner-Up Is. Hello, and welcome back to And the Runner-Up Is. I'm your host, Kevin Jacobson, here to talk about the 70th year of Best Actress at the Oscars, which covered the films of 1997. We'll be discussing how Helen Hunt won, why the losers lost, and who we think was the runner-up of this Best Actress race. And my guest today, you last heard on the Best Actress episode covering 1951. Vivien Leigh's win for A Streetcar Named Desire. We talked about people like Katharine Hepburn and Eleanor Parker and Shelley Winters, Jane Wyman. Now she's back for a whole new era of Hollywood here. Editor at Next Best Picture, writer at Nerdist, Polygon, and Backstage. Welcome back to the show, Lauren LaMagna.
Hi. Yeah, a whole new era. This is exciting.
Yes, Hollywood has changed significantly
Mm-hmm.
since you were last on.
It's kind of crazy how fast you're going through all the decades.
I
Because
know.
when you asked, I was like, it wasn't that long ago, and now we're in the 90s.
I know. It truly feels like just yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
We were breaking that year down.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been fun. It's been a marathon, but it's been fun. But yeah, before we talk this year, let's talk Best Actress as a category. So last time you said that your favorite Best Actress win of all time was actually an actress that we'll be talking about today, Kate Winslet. For The Reader.
Mm-hmm.
So now I will ask you an alternative here. What would you say is your favorite Best Actress lineup of all time?
Oh, that's another big one. And I'm debating if I should be controversial like my pick is.
Please do.
Well, you guys, everyone who knows me knows that Kate Winslet's my girl, and I have to, support her where I do. And I do love that she is Academy Award winner, Kate Winslet. But I do want to kind of highlight years that you haven't talked about on the show to give your listeners, a little tease about what's to come. So I feel like, I think from, post this year on, I would say a really standout one for me is like the 2007 Best Actress, or which is like the 2006 year, which was like Meryl Streep for Devil Wears Prada, Helen Mirren won for The Queen. We also have a couple of ladies that we're going to talk about, including Miss Winslet and Dame Judi Dench are in that lineup as well. And
and Penelope Cruz.
Penelope Cruz. I love when international films, go above that line and get out of, international film or foreign film. So that's always exciting. And I think there's so many different genres for those films. They kind of go across the board. And, Meryl Streep is entering her new era with, Devil Wears Prada. And that was kind of that's an awesome nomination for her. So that's a really cool one that I personally can't wait for this podcast to do that year, because that's got a lot of really good gems in there.
That is a great pick. One of my favorites of all time, just to preview my own thoughts for that year. So, well, my other question for you, you said last time that your most heartbreaking Oscar loss is the kind of joint loss of Isabelle Huppert and Natalie Portman in 2016. So as an alternative here, I will just open it up completely and say, what would you say is your most heartbreaking snub overall in this category?
This is like an interesting one. And I know there are people out there that scream at the top of their lungs for this, but I love the film Margaret, which stars Anna Paquin. And that film, right? I know I'm going to kind of deep, but she's a little niche. And people who know Margaret know that that film was in like post-production, distribution hell, and was, hacked and not released the way its creators wanted it to release. So I think when it was released, they didn't know where to put her, and like either no one saw it or they didn't know like what year to put Anna Paquin in. And I think Anna Paquin is such a great actor and such a strong actor. And for someone who won so long ago, especially as a child. There's only been, I think she was the last child that did win, actually. So for her to kind of
Yeah.
get into this, older, it was a good transition role for her to break into that adult world and that, best actress role, because this was before True Blood, I believe. But they didn't know what year to put her. I think she has like two critics groups awards for like different years. But yeah,
Yeah.
because that's just the way the film unfortunately handled. I need her and Kenny Lonergan to reteam again and do something again because they are very good with each other. I think artistically they make sense. If you guys
Hmm.
haven't seen it, I recommend Margaret. I really recommend the extended cut because she absolutely kills it in it. And I think for one of her critics groups, she ties with Meryl Streep. So if you can tie with Meryl Streep,
There you go.
she's got it. So that she was never going to get nominated, but if that
Yeah.
film got the release its creative team wanted, I think, her being a past winner, her breaking into the adult world, being the actress, she is the lead of that film. She is really carrying it on her still
Hmm.
young, like shoulders. I don't think she was that much into adulthood when she made it. So
Yeah.
that would have been a really cool revamp of like her new era into like adult acting because again it was before True Blood and she's still an awesome actor. I love everything that she does, but I think she kind of deserves a second nomination or an adult time to come back to the Academy Awards, and Margaret
Yeah.
is her best performance that I've seen thus far in her career.
What a cool pick. Love
Right?
that pick. I think, yeah, 2011 is kind of where it
That's
settled
where
for
we're
her in
like, yeah,
terms of
figuring it.
Oscars. And just looking at that lineup again, like, there was some room to maybe slot her in
Just
there,
a
I
little
think.
bit.
So, yeah, that's one of those years where it's like the critics and audiences kind of have a different view of what the Oscars thought was great that year, but that's also
Hmm.
going to be fun to talk about on that year. Many, many snubs in that particular Best Actress field. But yeah, I agree about Anna Paquin. I think that's kind of why people were kind of upset when she didn't have enough lines in The Irishman, quote unquote.
Well, yeah, and
That whole
she's
discourse.
yeah, and she's so good at speaking really fast. Like I think she's one of those actors that can do
True.
that, and she
Yeah.
does that a lot in Margaret. Like that girl does,
Hmm.
she's got a lot of monologues. And I think
Yeah.
that's goes back to I think her and Kenny Lonergan just get each
Hmm.
other artistically. So that was like a really good match that if he ever makes something else, I would love her to
Yeah.
come in and see it. But she is equally pretty good with the subtle reactionary stuff, which we'll
Yeah.
get into is stuff that makes me fall in love with acting. That's what attracts me. So it was really
Yeah.
cool to see her in The Irishman, not do what she's quote unquote known for or comfortable in, which is those really fast, spewy monologues and just
Right.
react and be still. So that's really cool. But yeah, we
Hmm.
need more Anna Paquin when we can get her.
We do.
So extended
Yeah.
cut Margaret, guys, it's great.
Yeah, definitely. Now I wish that she was like in the Michelle Williams role in Manchester by the Sea, and I'm just like
Yeah.
spiraling, wanting that second nomination for
Kenny,
her.
if you hear us, we need you to call that
We need
girl.
you.
Call
We're
that
in a
call that
crisis.
Kiwi. Come on.
Yes, yes. Okay, excellent. Well, let's talk about this year at the Oscars, the 70th Academy Awards. The nominees in Best Actress were Helena Bonham Carter in The Wings of the Dove, Julie Christie in Afterglow, Judi Dench in Mrs. Brown, Helen Hunt in As Good as It Gets, and Kate Winslet in Titanic, with the winner being Miss Helen Hunt. So before we break down these performances, Lauren, would love to know your overall thoughts on watching all of these in preparation for this.
I feel
What's
like
the vibe?
I feel like for you guys can't see this, but like we're both just smiling at each other on this recording right now. Because the when I first came for my first year, I think I said this was an interesting year because you had these fantastic performances and then you had these I don't know what I'm doing with this piece of work performances.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of repeating a little bit. We have strong performances, we have those mega big Hollywood movies, obviously. And then you also have questionable pieces of, I guess, art. I don't know. We'll get into it. So
Hmm.
you have your stereotypical Hollywood stuff, and then you have your really small, like ish little British stuff. And then we have some performances and films that are kind of in between, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So overall, it's a okay, kind of random group of girls. But
Hmm.
you have these really strong ones, and you kind of have history defining with Titanic. And I also think As Good as It Gets, that makes history too, technically. And
Hmm.
we have a race, which is also really exciting. So that was really fun. But then there's also some random, I don't know why we're here situations.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about on that one.
Really?
Yeah, not subtle what one you're talking about there,
Mm.
but yes. So I feel like this is a lineup that gets criticized sometimes, especially compared to 95 and 96, which we're just coming off of. And I do think this is, yes, a step down from those years, but I actually do like this group overall of nominees. I think the quality of the films definitely varies pretty wildly, but the performances themselves, I think I mostly enjoyed. Like, we have a lot of really interesting narratives going on here. We have the four Brits and the one American, and the American wins. We have a TV star crossing over in film and winning Best Actress. We have Helena Bonham Carter finally getting her first
A lot of
nomination.
first Best Actress nominations.
Yes,
So that's exciting.
exactly. Judi Dench and Kate Winslet, these two greats. And obviously, Kate already had a supporting nomination for Sense and Sensibility, but this is her first in lead and a true kind of arrival moment for her, I think. And she's going to be a mainstay at the Oscars for about a decade after this, as will be Judi Dench. So we'll be talking about these two quite a bit, including, again, as you mentioned previously, in another category, 2006. So that'll be fun. And then we have Julie Christie here coming back for a nomination for the first time in what, 25 years. So it's been a while. So interesting comeback. So we got some fun dynamics at play here. Excited to dig into a lot of these, especially Titanic. So shall we get started?
Oh yeah, I can't wait.
Okay, well, let's start here with Miss Helena Bonham Carter for The Wings of the Dove. All right, so this is the first of four introductions I'll be making in this episode. Lots of new blood in Best Actress this year, which is exciting. But Helena Bonham Carter, British actress, born in London, and she didn't have any formal training in acting, but she had an early lead role in the film Lady Jane, and her kind of breakthrough was alongside a great cast in A Room with the View. Great early role for her that launched her into becoming one of those just in demand young British actresses at that time. And even though she was great in films like Howard's End and other period pieces, she did find herself growing a bit tired of being typecast and kind of being referred to as a corset queen. Or like an English rose. And so she started to expand, kind of heading into the late 90s. And even though The Wings of the Dove is also a period piece, it does allow her to, play with more layers than we maybe had been used to seeing from her. So, The Wings of the Dove is based on the classic Henry James novel of the same name, and it tells the story of Kate Croy, played by Helena, who is a woman living in 1910 London who comes from humble means and is under the care of her rich aunt. She has a secret relationship with a journalist, Merton, while she's kind of also being presented to these richer men like Lord Mark, but she is not really interested in him, and she also meets Millie, who's an American heiress, and they become friends. So eventually, Kate comes up with a scheme to get out from under her aunt's control by getting Merton to seduce Millie. And after she finds out that Millie is terminally ill, she's kind of hoping to get Merton to marry her, and then he would get the money after she died, and he would be free to romance Kate. But of course, as these things tend to do, things take an unpredictable turn, and Kate realizes the consequences of her actions, let's just say. So, yeah, let's get into it here. Thoughts on the great Helena Bonham Carter overall, your experience with her as an actress, and her performance here in The Wings of the Dove.
Ooh, I absolutely love Miss Helena Bonham Carter. I don't know where I first experienced her. I always knew her to be like the Burton films and then Harry Potter
Mm-hmm.
in like early childhood and all of that stuff. So she was always, that cool, wacky, British gal that, you wanted
With
to,
the hair.
yeah, the hair and the dresses and just like the costume. There was something very animated and wiki about her. It was kind of like a Winona Ryder-esque vibe, I
Yes.
assume. So
Hmm.
there was this cool factor. So seeing her in these like very posh British dramas always throws me a little bit because that's just not how I feel. And even in interviews, she's just not that. She's not this. So it's
Right.
always interesting and also cool to see her totally go, the opposite of what her authentic self is. And personally, British dramas or period British dramas are not usually my cup of tea. I don't know why. It's just I try them all the time every year when they come out, and I'm less likely to connect with them for some reason. Maybe it's the time period, maybe it's just the way society was or the way those films are made, or I don't know, but I do really like this movie. And
Mm.
unfamiliar with the book, unfamiliar with the piece itself. I kind of love it because it's the most beautifully ridiculous plot ever. And it really is, well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions movie.
Right.
She's like, she had a plan. It was a good plan, and then she thought about it,
Hmm.
which is
Yeah.
great. And I love that this is a role she's really young here, and it does give her a lot to do. And a lot of actresses can play it very two-dimensional where I just want to manipulate this one person. I'm in love with my lover, X, Y, and Z, but she really does play in those in-betweens really well. And as I said previously, I love when I can just watch an actor think. I think that's so much more compelling and better than spewing out straight dialogue. I love when I can just see them and just see how they're reacting to the situation. If the camera can get that close to you, I want to see everything. And she really does, take that mask off and put that mask on several times throughout this film, which makes me go like, oh my God, like what's going to happen? Because you really see this character fall for her own trap kind of and realize the consequences and realize what she's done and how can she live with herself. So I love seeing that internal struggle as the film continues and as the story continues, which honestly, like I dare say it's one of my favorite performances, if not my favorite performance of hers.
Wow.
But she is really damn good in this. And I understand, a lot of the controversy from this batch of women is the fact that Helena Bonham Carter did not win and she did not get as much as she wanted to here. And I kind of
Hmm.
see the argument. And if I was, a voter back in the day and I saw this young woman, giving this performance, I would be like, what else can she do? She could only go up. So
Yeah.
this film does, it's an exception for me because again, I don't usually connect to these types of films for, whatever reason. But watching these two lovers, manipulate this poor sick woman in beautiful Venice, and then realize, holy shit, we just messed up completely, and you see her kind of lose everything. Beautifully tragic. It was one of those films that, there were 10 minutes left of the film and I had no idea where all the time has gone, which I think is one of the biggest compliments you can give to a film.
Yeah. Especially a period piece.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
Yeah, they have their, that's just my thing. I'm more a contemporary audience member. For some reason, I go in every time with an open mind. I do that with every film. But for some
Hmm.
reason, something about them is not usually something that I'm drawn to or I'm pulled to. So the fact that this got me and it made me connect the entire time, is just a testament to the story, to the writing, to the direction. I think across the board, it's a pretty strong film.
Yeah. I actually very much agree with you on a lot of those points. I think, just first of all, Helena Bonham Carter is definitely one of those actresses that I really grew up loving as a fan of, as you mentioned, Tim Burton, Harry Potter. Also, her role in Fight Club, she's super cool. She really just established herself very firmly in my mind as that quirky actress with the wild hair and the wild clothes and the gothic kind of aesthetic. I feel like I've really talked about similar things with Emma Thompson or Winona Ryder here, where I really got to know them for their more mainstream contemporary work in the 2000s and some of the 90s too. And that this whole period piece era of their careers, I just wasn't really super conscious of. So, yeah, even now when I do think of Helena Bonham Carter, I see her in that dark fantasy sort of light, just kind of like what you said. So, it's it's always interesting to just look back and see, like, oh, people kind of, watching her career progress saw her as this, before all of that. And so, for as much as I think she's great in some of those early Merchant Ivory roles, I went into this expecting something pretty similar. And what I got really was this great evolution of those kinds of young, stifled kind of characters into a darker energy and a maturity that I think she is so perfect for. I think this is exactly the
Yeah.
kind of transition point she needed to be seen in a more mature light. This character of Kate is so fascinating to watch because you could look at her actions and be like, she's the villain here.
Hmm.
And yes, a lot of her actions are drastic and selfish and very negatively impact the lives of those around her, to be very clinical about it, especially, people she loves. But to me, she never telegraphs any of that villainous energy. Even when she's very clearly acting in a selfish or terrible kind of manner, it is always coming from this place of like survival and this desire for freedom in a
Hmm.
way in a very repressive environment. We're starting to make strides in Britain at this time in 1910. It's not like we're in Jane Austen land anymore, but there is still some of that old way of thinking and that sense of like class distinctions and everything, and she's trying to escape what she thinks of is just a very stifling life of the upper class that her aunt is providing for her and wants to do things her own way, and she sees an opportunity and she takes it. Not justifying her actions.
Mm-mm.
I'm just saying she makes it understandable and you're kind of with her even through that journey, you know?
No, yeah, it makes the her plan makes sense to the audience. Like you get why she's doing it. And I agree with
Yeah.
you that Carter brings her, her natural rebellious side to this character
Yeah.
where but for some reason from she's just very talented. She doesn't use that her like natural aura to make Kate a villain. You just have that natural, I'm not afraid to do what I want to do to get what I want mentality, where yes, it is malicious, but she's not villainous because she's not
Mm-hmm.
doing this because she wants to manipulate another person. She's doing this because she wants to be with her love, which is a very organic and very natural way of thinking. And it's something that audiences can relate to. Everyone wants to be with the person that they love. So to combine that mentality with, this not wicked, but this very like rebellious kind of punk aesthetic to it. I think you're
Mm-hmm.
right. It's the perfect combination of, Helena Bonham Carter being, this young British actress where Hollywood, quote unquote, wants her to be, in those corsets, in those periods, as she's easily digestible, but she's able to not modernize this character, but put her in this like turn of the century woman where she is three-dimensional. And I think that does make this movie all the more
Yeah.
better.
Absolutely. Yeah. And she just thinks that she can get away with it. And I think,
Rightfully so.
yeah, this is not like good for her cinema necessarily,
No.
but like, I think what you see in her eyes, in the way that she interacts with like Merton and with Millie, especially, there's this feeling that she thinks I'm the clever one here. Like I have these smarts and I know how to manipulate people, but it's like she's kind of shocked to see how it starts to impact her own
She manipulates
feelings
herself.
over
No,
time.
yeah, she's so
Yeah.
good. And she kind of
Yeah.
gets shocked in that moment where like she leaves for a certain part of the film and then when she comes back everything kind of happens, she gets what she wants and she is a shell of a person now. She's kind of just withered with, grief and confusion and all of these weird feelings that she A didn't expect, but B really doesn't like that she's sitting in and doesn't know how to get out of it. Those moments in the film where she's talking to Linus were so compelling for me because she's really starting to A realize and see that A it didn't really work, even though it kind of worked, and B, how does she go from here? And like who can she look herself in the mirror and see like what she's done? And she really can at that moment in time, or even when
Mhm.
the film ends. So
Yeah.
those moments at the end, really do it's all those layers that she's was building, for majority of the film, and to see it all come crashing down as she and the audience realizes, it's not that you're not rooting for her, but you're kind of seeing how far can she go. And now
Hmm.
you're pitying this character. We're never
Right.
truly on her side. And that's all Helena Bonham Carter. That's not just the
Hmm.
direction, it's what she's doing in between those words and in between the blocking and the camera work to elevate, what little or what she is saying.
Yeah, it's really a slow burn kind of performance,
Mhm.
I think. Because at first, when you are watching it, she doesn't have a lot of super showy moments necessarily in like the first half. But again, as the film builds and builds, you are seeing those layers. But just, like even early on, she's kind of telegraphing some of the emotional turmoil happening within her. Like she says to him at one point after he says, like, oh, I want to be with you and everything. She says, one day you'll tire of me. And
Hmm.
there's just this great sort of sullen quality that Helena Bonham Carter has that really works for a line like that, and it doesn't feel like too off in any way. She's just so striking, but there's also that darkness there and that misfit quality that makes her great for this role and this look of hurt on her face. I think she really, like, when the camera really does like push in on her face, processing what's happening, I think that is
Yeah,
brilliance.
it's sad. You really see that in like the voiceover when she leaves. There's a lot of with this group of women, there's a lot of really good. At the end of the day, I am merely a woman. So there are a lot of lines in all of these films that really do make my heart just melt. And for
Hmm.
this film, it's the line where she's writing to him and she says
Mm.
something like, every time you look at her, like, just remember I love you more, or something along those lines.
Oof.
And
Yeah.
it's a voiceover of her saying that. And it's
Hmm.
just a pan in of her like looking and holding the letter to her heart. And your heart just breaks for this woman because she is starting to feel those mixed emotions and she's now fighting for, her love to stay her love. And that just absolutely breaks my heart and probably the rest of the audiences as well. That is just a stroke of brilliance to have her
Yeah.
say it over voiceover and just us have her face and just watch how she's processing what's happening hundreds of miles away, without her doing anything.
Right.
She's made the plan, now the plan is just happening and she can't do anything about it anymore.
I think it's, yeah, to your point a little bit also, like, very well directed. The scene where she tells Merton about Millie's condition and that she's dying, I think is also incredible. It's a very short scene ultimately, but there's this quiet power in the way that she talks as if she's sort of thinking out loud, but like her mind is clear that like she came up with this plan for him to seduce her, not for Millie, but as she says, it's for
Hmm.
us. And again, she doesn't overstate it or make it seem villainous. In her mind, she's totally in her own self interest. And also, another part of this is like, I think, to sort of help her father too, because he's kind of been cast out a little
Yeah, it's
bit.
kind of not happening. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, it's malicious, but it's never villainous. She's not doing it to like, oh, here's a dying woman, let's take her money, sort of a
right.
thing. And it also comes out of the area of this is my friend. She doesn't befriend her because she is a dying woman. They're friends at first. And she
Right.
does genuinely like her. Like this is a true, honest friendship. And
Yeah.
just she decides, let's have this go on so she can give us the money because she says something along the lines of, I know how she loves, which I think is such a
Mm.
strong line too. And I think she
Yeah.
plays that very well. And so she's using what she knows from her friend and the years or the months of friendship that she has to get her lover because she knows him very well and combine them. So
Yeah.
there again, it's not villainous, it's bad, it's unethical. Would some people have simply just asked? Maybe, but then we don't have a movie. So
Very
again,
true.
yeah, so it's not the smartest decision, but like it's a smart plan as well. And you never think that she is a quote unquote bad villain, but in the hands of another actor, she could have easily been.
Totally.
Like
Yes.
there is room for this character to be a villain in a film if
Yeah.
it's not put in the right hands. And I think Carter balanced that line very well because we obviously know this isn't the smartest thing to do, honest, or it's not the most ethical thing to do, but it's not from bad intentions. It's all from good, genuine places of love and want, essentially.
Yeah. It's just unfortunate that someone has to, suffer for that to happen ultimately, but Yeah, in that sense, it actually does remind me of a performance that I, of course, as everyone knows, holds very near and dear to my heart, which is Glenn Close in Dangerous Liaisons.
Hmm.
In the sense that it's just kind of about this woman who is using her own wits to kind of figure out her way through this very tough
Yeah,
society
and the
and do things
circumstances.
behind the scenes and not get caught,
Hmm.
you know. And the trouble is when people compare notes and then the whole plan is ruined. Like, and that just happens in both films. And I think the both films have different intentions and different styles of performance. There, obviously, Dangerous Liaisons is more of a melodramatic kind of thing,
Just a
and
little bit.
Glenn is kind of, yeah, Glenn is kind of playing that villainous air up a bit. But here, yeah, much more insidious, much subtler, and she knows exactly what kind of film she's in.
Which is just cool.
So,
I'm excited to rewatch it eventually. This was the first time I watched it, so
me too.
I'm
Yeah.
excited to come back to it whenever I do, like knowing what I know and to see, the different stages of Kate, because Kate's that's the juicy role, really. So just to
Yeah.
see that back, with my this filter on now, I'm really excited about it. I think this is one of the performances here that has the most, like, you'll find something new every time you watch it. You do have that with
Yeah.
a lot of women in this category, but I really think that this is the performance that I'm gonna really soak up a lot, especially with
I agree.
the longevity of just the role itself.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then just wanted to mention the final scene where everything is more or less unraveled. We'll
Hmm.
say I don't want to spoil things too much if people haven't seen it, but when she is in bed with Merton and just kind of unpacking what happened
Hmm.
and just her saying, "Give me your word of honor that you're not in love with her memory," and just her kind of lingering on that. Again, another really beautifully composed kind
Hmm.
of speech that she makes feel very spontaneous and like it is genuinely coming from her own mind. Because again, some of this stuff can feel very writerly, you know, so some period pieces have that,
Especially
but
book adaptations.
exactly.
Like, I don't know
Yeah,
how this
Henry
was
James
written. I don't know
adaptation,
like what the
right?
POV is, but it's adaptation is difficult. You never know what you're gonna
Yeah.
get with it, and it can feel like that, but it doesn't feel like that at all. And yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
scene just breaks my heart I feel for
Yeah.
everyone in the scene. It's not just her. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
I remember like really being like, well, it was like I remember thinking you had a major whoops moment. Like, didn't think this was gonna happen, but it definitely as well if it isn't the consequences. Like, you should have thought about this a little
Yeah.
bit more, girl.
Yep.
But yeah, it
Yeah.
absolutely breaks me. And I love the close-ups of her where we just have her
Incredible.
looking
Yeah.
just like a child, like just a little baby, and you wanna just she just doesn't know what to do anymore. And that's kind of the first moment where you're seeing her like that because she starts the film
Right.
so aware of who she is, what she wants, how she's gonna get it. And
Yeah, she's like on this train and she's like, you know, very
yeah.
sexualized and just like, I know what I want,
Hmm.
like that kind of thing.
Like,
And by
very,
the end, it's like,
yeah,
yeah,
very confident Helena Bonham Carter. Like, that's what we know,
right.
that's what we got.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're aware of this. And then by
Yeah.
the end, she's just lost. And
Mm-hmm.
she's really showing her age because she's always acting, older than she is. I don't know the age of this character in this film, but at the end, she's just a girl and she's just alone and confused, and everyone, like, people are leaving her, and she knows why, but she also doesn't at the same time, and she's just confused. And the close-ups of that are beautiful. I love how it's shot, honestly. There's a lot
Yeah.
of like dark and lights in
Mm-hmm.
that film, and I think especially with the makeup, she's super pale and her hair is super dark, and I think that really shows it as well. And then
Mm-hmm.
the setting and the bed and the curtains, all of that is really well shown of just
Mm-hmm.
confusion and abandonment and just being lost. And yeah, it's a heartbreaking moment, but she sells the hell out of it. All of them do. All of the craftsmen that's done in that scene are,
Yeah.
it's an epic, nice little tie where you're just sitting there after watching the movie and you're just like, shit. Like, now I want to read the book. Like, that's me now, and which is
What makes you
shocking.
want to read the book?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
shocking because period British drama, it's not my thing. Like, I don't
Right.
like Charlotte Brown. Like, they're not my thing. They're not my
Yeah.
those English classes were never things that interest me. Like I don't want to read about the girls in the petticoats looking for the guys. Like they're not it's not
Sure.
interesting to me. But now like after seeing this, I was like, I want to know like how this was written, whose point of view was it? Do we
Mm,
hear narration? So it's
right.
so which kind of dumbfounded me. And I was like, wow, damn, movies are cool sometimes. Like that's one of those moments where it's
Yeah.
like that was impressive.
Yeah. Don't judge a book by its
Yeah,
cover.
yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, also to your point, I think, a performer can only do so much. It has to also, work in concert with the cinematography and the overall vision and everything. And like you're sort of saying, by the end, it's just such a beautiful showcase for
Hmm.
her and her work and this emotional journey we've been on with her. And you do kind of wonder where she goes after this, which I
Yeah.
think is some of the best kind of endings you can have, is where you are genuinely curious what
Hmm.
is next for her.
Yeah.
So I love this performance.
It's a really good one. And yeah, the fact that
Yeah.
it's the number one, if I was again in that voting branch or in the Academy or just someone in the, Oscar pundit world, I would be like, damn, I wonder where this girl's gonna go. I
Yeah.
really, we're
Totally.
gonna talk about like Kate Winslet and have this big Star is Born moment, with her
Yeah.
film. But like I see this also really as, a star is coming or a star is born moment with her. I really do. Like she kind of
Hmm.
blew me out of the water. So
Yeah.
great
Totally.
performance.
It's a shame for me that she only had this and a supporting actress for the King's Speech
Yeah, because
still, and that's it.
these two periods, like, which is so not her. Like,
Right.
and
It's so
then her
wild.
Emmy, like the crown stuff. So it's just so
Yeah.
interesting that she finds these very like it's not like she's very like high society, like period pieces in England.
Right.
I find that fascinating where she hasn't gotten, it's always, yeah, the antithesis of who she is, which is
Hmm.
interesting. Like I like that, but I also am curious to see, if there's a role out there where she can balance, those be more contemporary and get into that. But
Yeah.
yeah.
She's yeah. She's always felt to me like a classic sort of scene stealing supporting actress type of winner at
Hmm.
some point,
Yeah.
and I'm just kind of still waiting for that to happen. Just throwing that out there to
Come
the
on,
universe.
universe.
Yeah.
Hmm.
All right. Shall we move on to our next nominee?
Sure.
Very excited to talk about this one. Oh boy. All right. Julie Christie in Afterglow. So, first of all, Julie Christie is back. We love to see it, getting her first Oscar nomination in 26 years, which is pretty wild. Her last nomination we talked about was way back in the 1971 episode for McCabe and Mrs. Miller, directed by Robert Altman. Afterglow is actually produced by Robert Altman, so there's a connection there. But Julie Christie is not just back at the Oscars for this, but sort of is back as an actress altogether, because in between her two nominations, she starts to work less and less. She does more collaborations with Warren Beatty, like with Shampoo and Heaven Can Wait. She does the great film Don't Look Now with Donald Sutherland, which is one of my personal favorites. She does Demon Seed, these kind of darker films. In the 80s, she does much smaller work, not as many Hollywood productions, and after 1990, she takes a full 6-year break from movies, and she returns with two films in 96, Dragonheart and Hamlet, and then the very next year, she gets this fascinating part in Afterglow, which is a film that maybe feels like it's based on a play, but it's not. It's about an older couple and a younger couple who have affairs with each other's partners. Julie Christie plays Phyllis, a former actress who seems to be depressed and realizes that her husband, Lucky, played by Nick Nolte, is cheating on her. One day, she actually sees it happen at a bar where he's very affectionate with the younger woman, Marianne, played by Lara Flynn Boyle. And after that, Marianne's husband, Jeffrey, played by Johnny Lee Miller, meets Phyllis at a bar, and they have their own kind of sort of affair. And it becomes this improbable sort of love triangle that turns into a love square, and eventually things come to a head. So let's get into it here. Julie Christie, thoughts on Miss Julie Christie overall and her big Oscar comeback here?
I think she's great. Love her, big fan of her.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay.
I'm aware of her. I've seen things of her when I was younger. I'm not someone that really followed her career, so I'm less, she's the one that
Yeah.
I'm the least experienced with out of these five women.
Yeah. That's
Which,
fair.
yeah, makes sense for, someone of my age. I've seen Hamlet. I really like Hamlet
Mm.
because I'm, again, theater person, all of that stuff. And this film, okay. So I love movies. So I'm gonna start off by saying that I love film. I love stories. I know how
Yes.
hard it is to make a movie. I've been on production sets. So I am I'm aware that,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot of hard work, it's a lot of long hours. Anyone who makes a movie, should be proud of themselves and they should all be celebrated because they did it. They made a movie. I don't know what this movie is, to be honest. I This was the first film that I watched for research for this.
Wow. What a
What
start.
a start.
I'm so sorry.
And it's equivalent to like to a fever dream when you're having the flu. Like I don't There's decent themes in it. I will give it that. There are decent
Mm-hmm.
themes that are worth exploring in the visual medium.
Sure.
Like grief, marriage issues, infidelity, all of that stuff is really good topics to talk about. How it's executed though is very messy, I guess. I don't, it's What a weird, unorganized dumpster fire of a movie. I don't have that many positive things to say about it. And I don't understand how people voted for
Oof.
this to be like
Mm.
one of the five best performances. Not No shame to her, but there's only, as you said prior, there's only so much one actor can do to elevate
Yeah.
material.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a lot of things, and we like to say they rise above the material or they carry the material. In this situation, there's a lot of things that are anchoring this poor woman down. And
Mm-hmm.
when there are so many weights against you, you can really help but sink with it. And not that
Mm.
she's horrible. I think she's doing fine with what she's given, but the tendency to be very overdramatic and very like soap opera-y is hard to avoid when you're dealing with a script of this nature, with direction of this nature, and the editing of this nature, the score of this nature. There's a lot of different things that are playing into this film that make it very difficult to. I know there's good intentions, but it's very hard to see, the true narrative line and to see the journey and to see, what the reason and the purpose for this film is. So I kind of
Mm.
came out of it with, what the fuck is going on? Because you really don't know what's happening. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden there's a left turn and then a right turn. So what do you think, Kevin?
Hmm. Yeah, this film is a
A
mess,
little bit.
and I, I really wish I could have appreciated Julie Christie's big Oscar comeback here a little more. But this film is filled with so many choices directorially that just do not work. The script, I think, is also, I'm sure, written with good intentions, but sort of laughable in parts. The tone is all tones at once. It's just like this discordant tone. And I'm honestly kind of shocked to see that the film did have mostly positive
Yeah,
reviews at the time,
I
and
was
that
gonna
there are still
text
people
you.
today who favor this movie.
I know.
Yeah,
I was
I
gonna
know.
text you as soon as I watched this, be like, what is this? But
Yes.
I did research into it because I was just like perplexed over what happened. And the only
You're
reason,
looking for
yeah,
answers.
because like the only reason you are watching this movie right now in the year 2024 when we're recording this podcast is for moments like this when you are looking at the best actress lineup of this
Yes.
year. Like that is the only
Hmm.
reason
That's the only context. Yes.
that you should be watching this film. It's not
Sure.
something you will go online or go on I don't even know if people buy DVDs in public anymore, but you will not be going to the DVD store being
There are
like,
dozens of us.
but like you're not going to be going to a place being like, I want to see if they have Afterglow on Blu-ray. Like that's not an organic thought that's going to come to your mind. It's just not. This is
Well, speak for yourself. No, I agree. I do. I think the performances outside of Julie Christie, I think Nick Nolte is doing his grizzly bear Nick Nolte thing. Johnny Lee Miller is not very good. Lara Flynn Boyle is making so many wild choices that I don't even know what that performance is. So, really rough. And I think Julie Christie is, for me, the saving grace here. And I think she is delivering as good a performance as she can within the context of very bad material, which I actually do think is a testament to her abilities as an actress to elevate this somewhat to something salvageable. Because, like, in the beginning, it's sort of established she is this former actress. There is a flamboyance there that she gives the role without it, for me, feeling too over the top and cartoonish. So that kind of does work for me. I think she really does also put herself in the mindset of someone who's just lost all interest in life, in her marriage, and that like her best days are behind her, and she's like looking for anything to bring her out of that funk. And I do think she's convincing enough as that kind of woman who is feeling past her prime but still has some life left in her. And you can definitely draw some parallels there with Julie Christie herself coming out of retirement ish, you know, or at least a extended break, and kind of like tapping into some of that emotion herself.
Yeah, and those are all, again, very compelling themes to have as a
Mm-hmm.
topic for a film. Those are all something that I would love to see, and I do see explored in this visual medium. I just wish there was a script or a director that supported her and supported this character's journey, because she is the one character that I feel pity for and that I want to learn more about, why she feels the
Yeah.
way she feels and why she's acting the way she's acting. And I just never get any of those answers or any of that backstory. There's nothing about it. It's just action, which again,
Yep.
it becomes a frustrating watch because you're just getting actions. There's no reactions. There's no reasoning really, except for infidelity, which
Mm-hmm.
again, is fine, but I want to explore, the why. That's the whole point of character-based stories, is to know why are people doing what they're doing. And we never
Mm-hmm.
really get that here. And I don't even, it's not really discussed at all. It's just, I'm sad. My daughter is gone. And I want to know, why that happened and how that affected her. That right there, that's the nugget that I would love to see explore. But it's just not, and it's in this weird, it is in this campy world where her performance is fun. Like I could see people finding fun in it and finding this,
Mm-hmm.
campy, dramatic essence to it. But I just wish there was something else besides her that is supporting her, where we could have an actual story and an arc that can show us something. Because at the end, they kind of stay where they are, or they're just a little bit more sad and depressed as they started. So you end the film being like, what just happened?
Right. And what was this for,
What was it?
ultimately?
What was it?
um, yeah, because, like, and I also think another part of this is, since it is part of the plot, I think it's worth mentioning, she is still incredibly striking as
Yeah.
she was in her youth, and she gives off the energy of that sort of flirtatious personality who maybe did attract a lot of male attention, and she still knows how to banter and be kind of playful with it, and she hasn't lost that side of her. So I think, for as cringy as the film ultimately is at times, I do think that as the film progresses and she realizes just how unhappy she is, and she realizes, you know, a certain plot point towards the end that maybe we'll talk about, there is a heartbreaking element to the performance that I did sort of key into, and a melancholy that she kind of stays in for a lot of the film, that I was like, she's clearly thought through this character and this
Yeah. She's
performance.
coming to work. I feel pity for her. I did not feel anything for any of the other characters.
No,
So
not
yeah.
at all.
So like it's like
No thoughts.
that's the testament, because those guys were just, I don't know what they were doing, which,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but power to you guys. She's clocking into work, which I respect, because I feel like if you're on that set and you're reading that and you're dealing with those other actors giving those performances, you have to know that something is not clicking with them or with
Yeah.
something. And she continued to give a performance and she tried her hardest. I felt a little bit of tension as I was watching it, where like she kind of was fighting the material that she was given. Because in the
Yeah.
moments where she's by herself, essentially, it's
Hmm.
good. Like when the moments with when she's running on the beach or along where she sees her daughter. Those are good, compelling moments. That's when I get
Yeah.
interested. And then it'll just shift back to, this love triangle, quadrilateral thing. And you lose interest again immediately. So yeah, she's the only character that elicits any sort of emotion at all, because the
Hmm.
rest of the film is just confusion, which is not
Yes.
what you want when you're watching a film that's about sad and intense subject matter that it
Yeah, that's
is
trying to be
honestly
like
discussing.
getting into it and like gritty and everything.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I agree, and I also think there's a scene early on that I was like, feeling the potential of what this film could explore,
Yeah.
having good intentions, having not watched this before. I'm like, let's go on this journey, not knowing just how WTF some of the stuff later on would be. The scene where she's at the doctor and she kind of goes on this tangent about a part that she played at one point in her career where she had x-ray eyes, and she's like, that would have come in handy so I could figure out like what's going on inside of me. There is that sort of air of depression and despair that is really weighing her down there, that she does, I think, communicate pretty naturally. And when the doctor says like, oh well, nothing's really wrong here, she seems almost like disappointed in a way, because like she doesn't, like, she wishes she could put a name to why
Hmm.
she feels the way she feels. So I was like, oh, this could be an interesting kind of exploration of a woman not being able to put a finger on why she is so miserable in her life, trying to find her way through that and maybe not finding answers. And then ultimately, I just don't know if it really is interested in that by the end. It is just kind of about the love quadrangle here. And I'm just like, I wish it was just about her. I don't want it to be about the four of them, you know?
Yeah, because those other three have absolutely nothing going for them. They're
No,
not
no.
interesting. They're not,
Especially the men.
no,
Especially the men. Just throwing that out there.
no. And yeah, and the woman is just hysterical. So there's nothing to,
Ugh, yeah.
yeah, there's nothing that's worth exploring, in my opinion, or there's nothing that's on the paper and that the actors are being given that is good. It's just not good. And the fact that that's where you see like those little nuggets where she's by herself and she's just doing her own thing. That's where you get those little nuggets of what this could have been if it was just, a character piece about this woman who is
Hmm.
struggling with this phase of her life and what's happening in that she's transitioning into, that she doesn't really know what's happening with, the track of her life. That's an interesting discussion and that's an interesting thing to have. And I think if this film was just about that character, just navigating life and just reevaluating her relationships, that would be interesting. Or even this film without, the point of views of the other three.
Yeah.
I think there's a nugget of an idea in there, and just the creative team involved just either didn't see it or did not want to discuss it and wanted it to be whatever this is. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think as we're talking it out, this is why I felt this air of like just discomfort in watching this film, is that it just feels like we're just focused on too many things, and it's trying to do so many things at once and cover all this stuff about infidelity and depression and life in Canada in the 90s, because that's where we are, by the way, like also grief and like dealing with a missing daughter, and or an estranged daughter, I should say. And it's just like they're trying to throw so much at the wall and seeing what sticks. Ultimately, I do think they do stick the Julie Christie performance, but like not enough to really back that up, like you said. But again, like I do just want to like keep pinpointing those little moments of nuggets of truth in between
Yeah.
some of the bullshit.
Mhm.
Like when she does actually spot him at the bar with Lara Flynn Boyle's character, and just like this very cool, icy sort of stare that she gives there, I think is fantastic. Just processing what she's seeing, confirming her suspicions, seeing it in the flesh, and it's not like she's like having this over the top reaction. It's just like, well, there it is.
Mhm.
Now at least I know.
Yeah.
Now, like that's what she wants to have, that certainty. That goes back to like the whole doctor thing. Like I wish I knew what's going on inside me. Now she's at least confirming what's happening with her husband. So, at least on that level, like that's the kind of stuff I'm connecting to.
Yeah, just, I don't know. there's 75% of the attention is on characters that are
Everything else.
not
Right.
entertaining or
Yep.
worth being in their world. Her world is the interesting world. And
Mm-hmm.
as we said, she does a good job of conveying that. And there are, again, these good ideas and themes, but it's just not executed well. And you need it to be executed well for films to work. And these are just one of them that does not work. I bet if you're like just not if you're under any influence and with a lot of people, this can be a fun watch. So
Sure.
I
Yeah.
think that's where this piece might shine. Like this is me like again being like I love stories. There's a world for everything. So that might be, its best environment.
Sure. One
But
man's trash. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and there's a world for it. But this is just a confusing film that is just shockingly. I don't understand how it got made and what was happening in those minds. But her pieces make sense, and it's jarring because her pieces are so sad and so depressing, and for it to be in a film of this tone, it's just
Yeah.
jarring. It just doesn't make sense, which again further confuses the audience and kind of distance them from the film itself, because why would we be connecting to a woman who is just so upset and confused and wanting to figure out what's going on in a film that has it's this weird tone. It's just like a weird unknown tone. So that's she's not supported at all when it comes to what the directors were thinking and what she was thinking. It just was not the same wavelength.
Yeah, that's the big issue here. It's like we're kind of like in this like woman under the influence, like
Yeah.
or like Mary Tyler Moore in Ordinary People, kind of like a woman trying to figure out her life, but then like the other three-quarters of the film is like the wackier scenes from Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
And it's just like I'm not understanding what we're doing here. So yeah, I wish that the material was better so that I could truly be fully on board with this nomination, because as I like to say sometimes, it is just best actress. It's not best actress in a good movie. So she is certainly putting in the work here, as we've been saying. She also does have a good sort of showcase moment at this dinner where she's gone off with Johnny Lee Miller's character and they're having this affair, and she's at this dinner and she's telling kind of her whole life story to this group. It's all just about how like her daughter, how lucky isn't the biological father, and how she had this old co-star, that whole thing. I think she makes what feels like an incredibly obvious Oscar scene feel relatively spontaneous.
Yeah,
So
it's
I
good.
just wanted to, yeah, note that scene for her. Again, though, by the end, it just becomes very convoluted and very convenient, certain revelations that happen. I think she does her best to try and make it clear how her emotional journey is at this point, of when we get the revelation that Lara Flynn Boyle's character is now pregnant and is probably the father is her husband, as in Phyllis's husband, and just kind of reckoning with that news and silently sort of bearing that on her face. I think really good work from Julie. And then she kind of has this huge over the top crying moment at the end, which I wish I was a little more affected by than I was. So solid work from Julie Christie that I don't know if I would have personally nominated, but good for her for trying to make it work.
Power to her, honestly.
Yeah. So I don't know if we have any other thoughts on this one.
Not really. She does say something like, I am an actress. And you're just like, yes, you are. I was
Yes,
kind of
queen.
just like, yes.
I do remember that.
hmm
That was good. Yes. She is an
She's
actress.
an
What can I say?
capital A
And
actress.
I will also say I did have a thought while watching her character's old movies, just in the context of the movie, being like, I sort of just wish I was watching like those movies and not like this movie.
Yeah, oh no.
Just saying. But shall we move on?
Yes.
Okay. Dame Judi Dench in Mrs. Brown. Alrighty. So Dame Judi Dench has arrived, and the Oscars are about to have a new obsession here. This is going to be the first of 8 Oscar nominations for Judi Dench. Some of them in supporting, so we won't get to those, including her win the very next year. But She has 5 lead actress nominations, which is pretty great for someone who finally broke through at the Oscars like 40 years into her career. So there's a long path to this first nomination for Judi. So I'll try to condense this as much as I can. She was born in York, in England. Her family was immersed in the theater world, and so she really grew up around it, grew up around actors. She trained at the Central School of Speech and Drama, and she actually studied alongside Miss Vanessa Redgrave. So lots of talent in that particular class. So her professional debut was on stage in Hamlet in 1957. She did a lot of stage work through the 60s, TV. She made her film debut in 1964 for The Third Secret. She won a BAFTA, first of many BAFTAs, also for her TV work. And her film work was pretty sparse through the 70s into the 80s, but she had a prime role in A Room with a View, previously mentioned, with Helena Bonham Carter, all the while having this great reputation as one of the true great theater talents, especially for playing Sally Bowles in Cabaret. So eventually, in terms of worldwide recognition, she is cast as M in Goldeneye, which proved to be a long-lasting role for her that really propelled her to more mainstream recognition in America. So then this same year she has Tomorrow Never Dies, and she has Mrs. Brown here, which was originally intended to be a TV movie for the BBC, but Miramax acquired it and turned it into an art house hit, and she got this first Oscar nomination. So Mrs. Brown is about Queen Victoria, played by Judi Dench, who served over England in the mid-19th century, and it charts the time period of her grieving the death of her husband, Prince Albert, and how Albert's former servant, John Brown, played by Billy Connolly, was brought in to help her out of her grief and get her speaking to her public again. And the nature of their relationship caused some whisperings in the press, and among others in the royal family and advisors and everything. So the film is about her dealing with those rumors while also still just trying to get over the death of her husband and growing this very personal friendship with Mr. Brown. So let's talk about the legend here, Dame Judi Dench, and her first Oscar-nominated performance here over the age of 60. It's still wild to me.
Wild, yeah. Love Dame Judi Dench. I am a person of the theater. I've always loved theater. That I would say that's my first love or my intro into storytelling, because I feel like as a child I understood that they were performing, and in film it took me a few more years to understand that concept.
Yeah.
So I knew her from theater. I knew her from Shakespeare. She was really big in that Shakespeare world.
Yeah.
I was in a performing arts program in a high school, and that was one of the things that we learned about with Shakespeare, and we would listen to some of her tapes and watch some of her videos of her performing, and same with Sir Ian McKellen. All of that entire group really were the ones teaching us about, and my teacher, of course, iambic pentameter and all of that big Shakespeare verse stuff. So I know her from that, and I know her from Sally Bowles. I didn't really know. I'm not a James Bond person. That's not really my world as well. So I was aware of her in it, but I really knew her and know her first as, Miss Shakespeare. Like that's just all the verses, all of the hard English that made no sense to me at the age of 10. But I slowly but surely got there, kind of. And I think this film is honestly really sweet. It's another British period
Got another
piece.
period drama.
Another one about the
Your favorite.
Queen. So again, we're very
Yep.
posh. We're very very high society with all the rules and all the big dresses, and gowns are great. I love them. So it was another one of those. And again, I associate Judi Dench with, like with Shakespeare, like this big, grand, high society performance. So she fits in that world for me. That makes sense in my mind. But I didn't know, again, maybe this is just me being an American. I'm not really that aware of Queen Victoria's reign or this relationship as well. This is all kind of new to me, or the monarchy as well. I'm not really super duper obsessed with the British monarchy or their history or their scandals and all of that stuff. So again, this was all very new to me, and I was kind of fascinated by it. I was like, "Ooh, the Queen's a little flirty." Um,
Yeah.
so that was that story is very intriguing. So it's another British period piece that kind of made me think a little bit and that kind of made me sit up. I think she's a fantastic actor, obviously, and I think this role just fits perfectly with her with the training that she had at the time that she was being trained. She was trained to, speak in a certain way and act in a certain way. It's that old, actor studio, even at like the Royal Company is they're very specific. You can spot if you're watching a lot of actors and performances, you can spot those guys very easily. And she has that. And I think a period piece of this nature fits that type of acting very well. And
Yeah,
she does it great. She has, the presence and the stoic of, someone in high power, but she also shows, that grief and that vulnerability that she's not used to or that she's not willing to expose to other people, and that she is given the opportunity to kind of convey in with this, new man that is just being honest with her and how that is new to her and she doesn't have an outlet for that anymore since her husband has passed. So that was really interesting to see that relationship over the course of I don't know how many years, but to see that grow and to see that become an actual true equal as much as it could be with, a servant and a queen, to just be equal people where they can, say what they actually feel and the relief that that comes. So she has that balance of, I am the queen, I can order you. And she does that very well where her people are, intimidated and do what they say. But you also have that other side where she can express her true opinions and be seen and be criticized. So that experience, that duality is a very interesting for I would think an actor, and I think she does that very well in this film. And I think it's a really sweet, pure, like honestly good, just cute film. I see why it could be something that would play on the BBC as a miniseries. It
sure.
definitely does have that. It
Yeah.
has that feel to it, but I think it's a very warm film.
Yeah, very masterpiece theater,
Hmm.
but that doesn't have to be a bad thing.
No.
Yes, Judi Dench, I think, is just excellence. I think she's just one of those gold standard British actresses who I do think a lot of actresses kind of aspire to. Her superpower for me as an actress is her voice. I think there is this almost like booming kind of
Hmm.
power
Yeah.
when she's really projecting that is very
She's
Shakespeare, to
from
your
the
point.
theater.
Yes, very classically theater. So you definitely feel that background, and it works really well in roles like in Mrs. Brown. But then she also has kind of like that lilting quality that's like this kind of underscore of like vulnerability that can really sort of break your heart, which I think is also what we have in this performance. I think this is really great work from her. I think I went into this definitely bracing myself for a dull BBC royal drama. And I think there are some elements of that still just in the way it's filmed and everything. But Judy's performance, I think, is electric. I think she really taps into the pain that she faced in the aftermath of just, the love of her life passing away and the complicated feelings she has over how the people in her life, like, kind of refuse to make him a king. And so, like, there's this added layer of tension that does permeate through a lot of those palace scenes, especially every time she's dealing with like the advisors or her son, even, or the prime minister. It's like she just has such a distance from them. And a lot of it is her disinterest in public service because Albert's gone, but it's also some bitterness. And I think, Mr. Brown here really is offering this dose of reality and like a humbleness and just like this blunt way that he talks to her sometimes and doesn't treat her like she's on a pedestal all the time. And I think you need someone who's really trained like Judi Dench to give you that commanding Queen Victoria sharpness, but then also like that internal struggle that she was facing. And I just think she threads that needle perfectly. I can't think of anyone else who could have done something like this at this time.
Yeah, no, this is a beast of a role and this is a fun role. And I think this
Yeah.
is something that she was probably really excited to play. And I just want to say, I think this film also is about partnership And I think
Mm.
her scene partner, Bill Connolly, is very good in this. You need that
Yeah.
partner because it's called Mrs. Brown. So you need Brown to also be able to play with her. You're only as good as your scene partner, as they say. And I think
Mm-hmm.
he is absolutely fantastic in this as well. I am sad that he also wasn't nominated as much as she was, but to
Yeah.
have that banter with her and for him to fire back at her and to be, that big, strong Scottish man, I understand he doesn't really have as much things to play with as she does because she's dealing with so many more things internally and externally. But to have, a good scene partner to just back up because I forget that scene, but there was one scene where towards the end where they're just fighting with each other in front of all
Mm.
of her court essentially, and you really just there's no, masks are off. You're seeing them just go at each other like they are a married couple, and that
Mm-hmm.
was something where I bet like once they yelled cut, she was probably like, "Damn, that was fun," you know.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
you like it's good to
Absolutely.
see. It's really wonderful to see two good actors play with each other and just have a good
Mm.
match. And that was one of those scenes where I was like, they're really going at it. And it's good to see that they're not one's not overpowering the other, one's not significantly weaker than the other. They really are working together. And to have even like moments of romance without, the quote unquote explicit intimacy. This really is about where is the line and can we just step near it, maybe step across it, but not explicitly hop over it. And this film
Right.
does convey that. And these two actors are doing a lot internally and a lot just with glances and just with meaning underneath words. And they are both playing back and forth with each other very well. I loved their scenes when it's just, the two of them on the horses or when they're just like slowly peeling back each other's layers. Those were the best parts for me. So it takes really immense skill to be romantic without, the quote unquote Hollywood I love you speeches or blatant flirtation. You to see that underbelly is
Mm-hmm.
so fascinating and so good. And that is what film's about. It's to see those little, micro flirtations or those micro compliments or little glances that you only notice when you're in that moment yourself. And to have a camera catch that is so powerful. And I think they both do that exceptionally well here.
Yeah. I wonder how much this was filmed like in sequence because I do feel like you really see that evolution
Mhm.
very gradually over time. I think when he does finally coax her out to go horseback riding, she's still very clearly in grief, but there is this gratitude in her expressions there that like this man was close to her husband and serves as a kind of maybe not replacement necessarily, but just kind of an approximation of that life she used to have with her husband.
You see that, yeah, you see that line of it's not trust, but it's something that can quickly turn into trust. Or
Mm-hmm.
there's this little bit of, I think you can be my ally. Like she's still very strong and very much the queen in that scene. But there is, it's not a layer isn't dropping, but it's the start of something that might drop. It's that little
Right.
which is all her. It's all in, not even a line. It's just a glance. It's just body language, essentially, that again, it only takes a very impressive and a very talented actress to convey because it's only for a second. I think they only shoot to her for a little bit and then they continue on with the scene. But you get that in that moment that she's starting to see that he may be a good guy and this may not just be another person's that's just doing his job. Like he may actually be genuine and care about the person and not the queen. And you see that start
Mm.
to tick in her brain, which is a really most actresses cannot convey that in 1 to 2 seconds.
I agree. Yeah, and that's something also I was just thinking about while watching the film is that she manages to make this feel very natural and convincing and gives Queen Victoria a kind of dignity without necessarily making her like just like, oh, I'm Queen Victoria, but she's also not being very naive in the sense of like, oh, I'm just gonna trust this Mr. Brown and just kind of follow his fancy sort of thing. Like she kind of gives this character so much dignity. I think that's what I really responded to. She doesn't kind of dumb her down, but she also doesn't make her seem like some, clueless kind of queen,
Yeah, she
you
seems like
know?
someone that's active in her court, which is
Yeah.
it's good to see, women of that time period have agency and be active in what they're doing. And even though she's a queen, that's not the case for some people. And we've seen films where women are or queens essentially or people in high society or high court are just there and they're just letting it go away because they're more interested in, being socialites and they're more interested in
Right.
doing whatever. Is you really see her, she knows what's going on and she is making decisions and she's disagreeing with people and she has reasons behind it. And that's where, those big, theater trained muscles, and that diaphragm, that voice is
Yeah.
all coming out. And that's where she can shine and use those external tools and just prove, be like, I am from the theater. I am strong. I am powerful. And I can intimidate you and I can intimidate you really fast. And God be with you if you want to compete against me because you will lose, and you get that within her within her lines. Like when she does
Yeah.
have those,
Totally.
oh, you're right. I agree. Like, sorry. And they immediately back down. So you get that. And to have that, again, that actor that has that confidence and that presence is really important for this type of role who is the queen. Definitely she has a job, she knows what she's doing, she knows that she should be in London but she doesn't want to be and she has her reasons why she doesn't want to be and she will let you know and you just
Mm-hmm.
have to deal with it and you can't convince her. Like that's very adamant, like this is her decision, this is what she's making, and you have to fix it your way without me being there. I'm not moving. And like,
Right. I
and
love it.
you get it. Like,
Yeah.
you get that. You cannot win that argument. And those men feel that.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I do love that scene where she yells at one of her subjects about the papers saying that she was finally coming out of mourning and being so irate that, like, they're saying these things and who are they to say what she is dealing with? Like, and who told them this story?
Mm-hmm.
And just like railing against this establishment for being so antagonistic towards her. It's just like this whirlwind of a scene and she totally commands it. She also has to deal with all this bullshit from Disraeli, the prime minister, who speaks so passive aggressively to her. But eventually, he does wear down Mr. Brown and convinces him to convince the Queen to actually preside over Parliament and everything, which she has expressly forbade Mr. Brown from doing, and she doesn't want him to kind of meddle in any of that. And that's where she starts to feel betrayed because he broke that sort of social contract. And there is this real pain and the heartbreak in her voice as they argue, and you see just the pain there. It's not even anger, it's just like this disappointment, especially like even when he calls her woman. It causes her to sort of revert back to that official sort of dispassionate voice and is just like, do not presume to talk to your queen in that manner. Just the way she
Yeah.
snaps back into that is so powerful.
Yeah, that's what's really powerful about her is her distinct voices. She kind of has two, really. And it's studying speech right now, so it's interesting to have, that mind now to understand what she's doing with her muscles and her throat and what she's doing with her diaphragm and all. To have that change and to be consistent with, the Queen's voice and then Victoria, which are, two people, and it's different to see her kind of click into that. It's fun for me because now I have that extra knowledge of she's actually
Mm.
changing, she's getting tighter in her voice physically, like her body is just contracting more because that's what she do to have that type of accent and have those sounds come out that certain way. She is physically constricting herself, which makes sense character wise in those scenes, like why she is like that. And then when she loosens up a little bit, she gets a little bit more relaxed, and you hear it in that voice and you see it in her mouth,
Mm.
which is that's all theater and that's all Shakespeare. And that's very, old British theater training that she has, instilled in her DNA. And it's fun to see someone like that put that skill into film where you can really see it and hear it. And it's effective, yeah, in a theater where you're all the way back and having to project to a mezzanine, but to actually still feel that on camera is really impressive.
Yeah. And especially to not have it feel like this is just transplanted from theater
Oh no, yeah.
necessarily,
She's
because that can
definitely,
happen
yeah,
too.
I always say theater actors are the most talented, but there's an extra layer where you need to know the difference between theater acting and film acting. And she
Yeah.
knows that line. She knows how to adapt her craft to be on film and to be a film actor and to scale it back, but not make that change the character itself. She's still playing this character, and maybe she speaks lines differently for logistics reasons, but she's using skills that are all based in character where it makes sense. So for theater and for stage, she might just be over exaggerating a little bit, but here she is definitely able to scale back and still convey everything with her eyes and with small muscles and with body language, where that's just not a thing that you can do totally in a theater. You might get that for some seats, but you can't get that for all. And she uses that in this film. She is using everything that she has learned and mastered essentially, and she's tweaking it so it can be used in film, which again, I love seeing, the little transitions and seeing, people take what they do know and from their area of origin. Hers is definitely theater, and to see her, tweak it just a little bit, because I would say film and theater, they're not siblings, they're more like cousins. They are from the same family. Like you're acting, you're definitely doing it, but there is, some distinct differences, but they're pretty similar when it comes down to it. And you see it here, and I love how she is able to use things that she was learned that were definitely created for theater performances and bring it into film and have it work for film.
Yeah, that's very well said. And I think to have all that technical craft that you can see in her, but also not have it feel like cold
Yeah.
or just like that she is very like, cerebral with the performance. I think she just knows this character kind of in her bones and gives you this really beautiful emotional moment, especially at the end after it's been a few years and he's become sick and he's on his deathbed and everything. And she finally comes to him and is feeling kind of apologetic in not being a best friend to him after all this time. I think that really graceful scene at the end is a nice capper on the end of this performance. So, yeah, she gets to show a lot of range here, and she, for my money, nails it.
Yeah, she's pretty awesome. And that scene also is just really sad. I don't know what the line is, but she says, like, I wasn't kind to you, or something really simple. It's a very simple line where she just
Yeah.
says something along those lines where your heart just aches for him. And he's literally on his bed being, it's okay. And she's like, no, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not. And it's just, like I could have been a
Because
better friend or something.
you know how big this is for her to actually admit
Yeah, and
this,
she says it so quietly, and she's not whispering, but it's slightly above a whisper. It's just barely a mumble or slightly above it, and she's just like confessing this, I should have, I care about you. And it's those
Mm-hmm.
slightly little things. It's so intimate. And to have this woman just expose herself and expose that underbelly, as she is, still tied up. She's still in the queen garment. She's very much proper. And she's like, can I just wash you? And it's
Mm.
just very
Yeah.
simple and again pure. There's a very pureness to this film, even though it is, set in the most non-pure area over. Like we are the Queen of England in high society. There's so many things going on, but there is this purity to this story, and it's based in the characters and it's based in this relationship in particular. And to the fact that just the scene of her washing him and how she slowly inches up and she just so carefully does that is heartbreaking, but very impressive and impactful and wonderful. And it could just be a simple gesture if another actor did it, but she does put meaning behind it. There's always a reason for what she's doing or what she's saying or how she is looking or moving. And that's just one of the like tender moments of the film where, it all builds to it and it does result in a really cathartic experience. But I just love how it's not a label, but all you need to know is that these people deeply cared for each other. And this film shows that and it proves that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Speaking of people deeply caring for each other, let's get to our last losing nominee here, Kate Winslet in Titanic. Alrighty. So, another start of a big Best Actress obsession of the Oscars. Kate Winslet getting her second Oscar nomination here, first in lead, previously nominated in supporting for Sense and Sensibility in '95. But to introduce her here on this main show, Kate Winslet was born in Berkshire, England. She was in a family of actors and she did a lot of acting growing up. Eventually broke through with British TV, things like Dark Season, and she made her film debut in Peter Jackson's film Heavenly Creatures, which was a kind of an early critics fave for her. And then the very next year, she auditions for a smaller role in Sense and Sensibility, but then Emma Thompson was like, actually, you should play my sister. So she plays her younger sister, Marianne, and gets very strong reviews, gets that first Oscar nomination. She wins the SAG Awards, she wins at BAFTA. Huge breakthrough moment for her. The next year, she's in the movie Jude, and she is also in Hamlet, just like Julie Christie, and also Judi Dench is in that too, so wild kind of convergence there. But then there's Titanic, which is a massive turning point in her career and in the career of many people. But she wasn't necessarily the first choice. The director, James Cameron, wanted either Claire Danes or Gwyneth Paltrow, but Kate convinced him that she was the only choice for Rose, and he admired her persistence. So Titanic, hardly needs introduction, but it was obviously a massive production, huge, sweeping, romantic disaster epic that was written off by the press at first as the sort of production budget went up and up. But then when it was released, it became a phenomenon and made stars of Kate and especially Leo DiCaprio. Gets great reviews, ends up almost sweeping the Oscars. Kate was not part of that sweep. But Titanic is about the ill-fated maiden voyage of the Titanic, the ship of dreams that set sail in 1912 and that ended in about 1,500 deaths when the ship sank. And while a lot of the film is accurate recreations of the ship and the sinking and all that, and some of the passengers, the two leads here are fictional. Kate Winslet plays Rose, a 17-year-old girl traveling first class with her wealthy fiancé Cal and her snobbish mother. And she doesn't want to be engaged to this man, so she considers jumping off the boat, but her plans are interrupted when she meets Jack, who is in third class after winning a lottery, and the two of them have this intense personal connection that grows over time, and it develops into a romance, much to her fiancé and her mother's chagrin. But that romance is cut short when the ship hits an iceberg and they soon have to fight for their lives. And there's also a framing device where there's an elderly Rose played by Gloria Stewart, but, we don't have to get into too much of that since Kate's not really involved there. But anyway, Lauren, we're here. It's time to talk about Kate Winslet, your fave, one of my faves. Tell me your relationship with Kate and this movie and this star-making performance.
Oh, where do I begin? Yeah, she's my favorite. Kate Winslet's my favorite actor. She's my favorite actor working today, probably my favorite actor of all time. This is the first film that I've seen her in. This was my introduction to her. I guess you can count Flushed Away because I probably saw that as a kid somewhere before.
Not Flushed Away.
I mean, that was first probably, but that never clicked in my head when I was watching it as a child. But I'll go back to first Titanic. That was one of my hyper fixations as a child. Every little girl has, big like a big four, and Titanic is a popular one, and it was one of mine. I really was fascinated by the ship. I don't know why we're all fascinated by it, but I read a lot of books about it. I did a lot of elementary school projects about it and its sinking and architecture and some people on it and the discovery of it. And all of that stuff I thought was very interesting and fascinating. And I also really love James Cameron. My dad is a big science fiction buff. He is one of the reasons why I love film because he loves film as well, and that's his genre. He loves sci-fi and he loves fantasy. So he would always show me and my brother, because we're very close in age, things over the weekend when we were younger. And I fell in love with his films. I fell in love with Terminator and The Abyss and all of that stuff. Sarah Connor is my favorite character of all time. If I really want to get passionate, I would say I would have nominated Linda Hamilton for Best Actress in 1991 for
Yes.
Terminator
Hell
2. I
yeah.
think that is a fantastic performance. And so when I was of a certain age, I don't remember what age, I live in New York, there was a Titanic exhibit at the Discovery Center. So when we went, my dad went to my mom and said, I think she's old enough to see it because he would always wait until we were somewhat of age to see films. He did show me and my brother Terminator when we were like 7, but it's okay. But he likes to make sure that we're somewhat of age. And he thought that we were of age to see Titanic because we were at the museum, we were learning about it, and he thought that would be a good tie-in. So we went to the Blockbuster and we got Titanic, and my brain chemistry changed essentially. I think like, it was
It happens. Yep.
it's like that perfect film where you see it at the right age where you're very impressionable. And I straight up think it's a perfect movie. It is my favorite film of all time. I know it's a cliche because it's a lot of people's favorite of all time, but it really is a cliche because it's true. I think nothing about this film is bad. I think it all makes sense. Even the things that people don't like, I love, including the screenplay. I think it has great lines in it, and I think it makes sense. And I think it's phenomenal capital B blockbuster filmmaking that we don't see a lot, that we don't experience a lot. And I think this is James Cameron's magnus opus. I think it's one of the best things that's ever been done and really does prove what can be accomplished in film from a technical standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint, and to put this all on the backs of these two very young actors. They're both probably in their young 20s when they made it. Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio. But I think it's this lightning in a bottle, stars aligned, even though during production it didn't seem like it was aligned, but it's just a very simple, big, grand, great movie that makes the masses fall in love with it. And if you can get the masses to fall in love with it, you have to be doing something right. And I think this is a lot of people's gateway into, different elements of filmmaking. And I think there's a reason for that. And for someone like Winslet, who, was coming from, I guess, supporting roles in British period dramas like they all do over there, she tackles it and she handles it very well. But I think it's a perfect film all across the board, and everyone is supporting each other in their masses, which is why it won 11 Oscars. So I love this film. I love her in it. And what do you think, Kevin?
So yeah, a step up from Afterglow.
Mm-hmm. Just a little one. It's
Yeah, yeah,
crazy that in the year we
an
have
extra star.
Titanic,
I
Titanic and
know,
Afterglow,
truly.
two ends of the spectrum.
Truly two polar
Mhm.
opposites. Yes. I, first of all, love, love, love Kate Winslet. I think I've said this before somewhere. I don't know if it was on this show, it might have been on another show. I don't even remember. But for me, before there was Glenn Close, there was Kate Winslet,
Ooh,
which is
that's
saying
big.
something because people know about my
Hmm.
relationship with Glennie. And I really fell in love with Kate as an actress because of two films, really. One was Titanic, and the other is Eternal Sunshine of the
Mm.
Spotless Mind. Two very different films, also very different characters, very different performances. But I've always just found her to be such a chameleon as an actress and someone who really works in so many different kinds of films, different time periods. She just has such a fierce presence, but also like a warmth and a kind of relatability that I've always loved. And you know what? I really do love how much she loves awards and getting that recognition from her peers because it is
She's
meaningful, you
very
know?
honest, and I love that about her. And as someone
Yeah.
who was a child, like I was probably 11 when I saw Titanic for the first time. It was
Hmm.
like one of those
Yeah.
impressionable ages, and to follow her. And then I found out who she was. I saw the film, and I remember I watched all of the behind the scenes, as soon as like the very next day
Yes.
to
Of
hear her. I
course.
was shocked that she was British. Like I went over like voice and all that stuff, which is funny because now I'm studying it. And I remember then the next year was like 2008. So she was everywhere, because she had these two big films coming back and she was back with Leonardo DiCaprio in one of them. So she was
Oh yeah.
everywhere. So I really like got my Kate Winslet education in those 2 years, I guess. And
Yeah.
she genuinely loves what she does. And I love that about her. I love how she's very open about how she loves to be an actor and she just an actor. Like a lot of people, a lot of actresses want to, expand and do other things. And I know since she produces now and gets her own stuff made, especially now with HBO, but she really loves, the art of creating a character and just being an actress, finding their voice. She loves accents. And I love how much she loves it and she always talks about it. And you see that from a very early age because for this being her first film in her young 20s, I can only imagine how scary of a job this must have been to be
Hmm.
co-starring with Leonardo DiCaprio being, number one on this call sheet because I've seen a picture. She was number one on that call sheet. She was not number two. So I just want to point
Hmm.
that out. And she's doing a lot. She's playing a younger version of a narrator. There's a bit of a mystery involved in it, and we have to relate to her. Like we're not relating to Jack. We are relating to this girl, and a lot of her story is about a suppressed woman fighting her system of oppression, which is a great way for people to connect with the character. It's a very relatable story for any type of person, but particularly young women. But that's also kind of difficult because there's never this big monologue or this big scene of someone being like, I want to stop this or I want to do something about it. It's very much a slow build, and you have to see confidence grow within a person. And she does that here. She really does have that. And I was very nervous about rewatching this because and I experienced this when it came back out last year for its re-release because this was the first time that I was watching Titanic older than the characters. I don't like to watch this film a lot.
Uh,
So I
hmm.
thought, being someone who's not 17, I would be like, this is kind of ridiculous that these guys just met and they're going to do all of this for, the boat is going down. Let's get our priorities in check, sort of a thing. Like,
Yeah, sure.
but it still works, and I do commend that to both Winslet and DiCaprio for being able to have us we root for them, even though we know this is not the smartest thing to do, but we still want them to, fight for each other and make it work and to see Rose slowly build this confidence and see what life is like. It's that whole allegory of the cave where, she sees the opening and she can't go back to where she was. It's very compelling and it works on a rewatch and it works with age where it's not just for young girls or young adults who want to, break out of their hometown. It works for adults as well, which doesn't
Hmm.
always happen with, coming of age stories, which is what this is,
Totally.
honestly, when it comes to Rose's
Hmm.
arc.
Yeah. And of course, everyone has always talked about how young girls, teenage girls especially, came back to the theaters again and again because of Leonardo DiCaprio. And I'm not going to deny that that was a
I
part
mean,
of
I
it.
don't blame
You know,
them.
solid part of it.
Hmm.
But I do think a lot of it was also Kate. And I think she didn't get enough credit for what she brought to the character of
Yeah,
Rose,
and
ultimately.
during my rewatch, it's interesting to, come back to films that you've seen when you were younger, where, you never had this
Hmm.
critical, now you have a critical lens, now you know what filmmaking
Yeah.
is, what all of these elements that it takes to make a film, all of this. And I was kind of shocked, honestly, to see how much Winslet was doing, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah.
Jack is a
No,
very,
I agree.
and not to compare, Jack and Rose, they are apples and oranges, but Jack doesn't really, Leonardo DiCaprio does not really have that much to work with compared to Kate Winslet. She's doing a lot of stuff. She has a lot of things
Hmm.
going on. She has to fall in love with this boy. She has to claim her independence. She has to take a stand. She has to showcase what's going on between to be a first class American woman who is on the verge of bankruptcy, what that does to a 17-year-old, still be 17 now
Hmm.
she's understanding this major disaster. There's a lot that she's working with. And I was honestly pretty shocked over how intense this arc was, now that I know more about acting and more about filmmaking and more about what Kate Winslet was doing probably day to day on this set and the amount of
Hmm.
hours she was there and the amount of days or months that she was on this set. The arc is very complex to be able to have that through line in something as big and as moving as this film is. Because I get it that it's massive and there's all these different set pieces and all these costumes and it's grand and there's new technology that's being used. But at the end of the day, if you don't care about this relationship, and if you really don't care about Rose, because it is about her at the end of the day, none of this is gonna work or make sense. So it really but it's on them, but like it's really on her. We have to fall in love
It
with
is.
her falling in love with Jack. And DiCaprio
Hmm.
has the charm. He's got that down. And he does. It's very I bet it was challenging for him, but he definitely has that charming, perfect, young
X
American,
Factor. Yeah.
happy-go-lucky guy down.
Yeah.
She,
Hmm.
on the other hand, Winslet, this woman has to be this young girl who's just confused and able to fight this instant attraction and just have that build over the course and then become the hero at the end of the day because we're watching this film with detective eyes because it is a treasure hunt story too. We're always looking at where's this necklace? Where's this necklace? Where's this necklace?
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
she's working with a lot. It is a very complicated role where you're looking at, okay, what is Rose's trajectory in this beast of a movie?
Yeah. And I just think it honestly starts with the very first scene we see her. Literally, this glow that she has in this glorious introduction
Oh,
shot.
what a shot.
Just, looking as she's looking up with that beautiful purple hat. It's just such a gift of a first shot to establish here. You feel such an authentic chemistry with her and Leo. You can't fake that kind of chemistry. I think it's a performance that even with all the accolades and her Oscar nomination and as iconic as it is, it still feels a little underrated to me as a performance because so much again was made about Leo being a superstar overnight. But to your point, I don't think the film is what it is without Rose and without her performance. And she has such a natural charisma. And I feel like there's a way she could have played this that is much colder or really emphasizing her upper class status in a way that could be a little off putting and maybe even annoying. But I think Kate really just keys into her being just a restless kind of spirit who is too smart to be tied down in this like future loveless marriage, right? And she wants to live a more adventurous life and she's so open and eager to these new experiences and I find that she just takes these little opportunities to shade in the character and her playfulness and how like no, she's not really someone who does want to end her life. That's not her. And Jack recognizes that kind of instinctually. So I think even though this has the feeling of what you could call like a movie star performance, quote unquote, in a big blockbuster, and that's part of it, I think there's just so much more going on here than people give her credit for.
Yeah. And I think her and Leonardo DiCaprio are like cinematic soulmates. I think they work so
Truly.
well together. I want that third movie. So if you guys are listening, Miss Winslet and DiCaprio, get on it. We're overdue. But I think
Hmm.
they do work phenomenally well together and they just get each other. They're just the type of relationship. And it's interesting what you're saying, Kevin, because during her
Mm.
I guess like almost when she jumps off the boat and he's like, you would have done it already. And she gives him this little glare. And it's not a menacing glare. It's just an, oh, you kind of see me glare. Like
Right.
that's what Rose is. She's looking for the person to see her.
I see you.
Yeah, literally. Like that's what he does. He's a very
Yeah.
James Cameron, very simple filmmaker. But
His mind.
and it works, it's okay.
Yeah.
She's just looking for that. And you see that and she's not intimidated by that. She's kind of relieved that
Hmm.
there's this random guy she's never met before, or she saw him kind of from the balcony, and he just gets her, or he sees that he can get her. And that's a lovely quote unquote introduction for them because then the music plays and
Yeah.
she plays the romance well. She knows how to be, the leading lady in a romance and she knows how to fall in love
Hmm.
with the boy. But it's that internal struggle of knowing what's easy what she should do, what will help her family, what will secure herself and make her, have this easier life
Hmm.
physically. And then she knows what she spiritually wants. And and to play that internal battle of I know what I should do, but I also know what is more authentic for me is that's the juice of Rose, and that's of young Rose essentially. And you really see that in the scene where he's like begging her to not go back with Cal in like the gym or whatever, and she's just like looking, she's
Hmm.
just scanning him, and she's like, I have to go. And he's like, do you really? And she doesn't say anything. She's just looking at him, and you see her again, you see her thinking. And I love when actors can do that. And if you can do that in this really big movie where so much is going on, we have impending doom coming, we have this epic romance, we have historical drama, we have this young woman who is in a different accent from her natural voice. And for her to able to just be seen, to see her think, what should I do? What? And she knows, like in her head, she's like, this is a defining moment in my life. This will literally change how I'm going to live my life. And you feel that weight on her. You feel this heaviness in that scene. And again, she could have just
Yeah.
played it as the romantic lead. She could just play it as Juliet, but she doesn't. She plays this as this is a make it or break it decision, and she's really thinking about it. She's taking her time. And then it cuts to the next scene, which is her watching another little girl in first class, be adjusted by her mother.
Yes.
And that's, you see it's the same thought. You see that it's the same thought, and then you actually see the decision make. And
Hmm.
that's, again, I love that type of acting. That is the most magical moment, I think, for me, when you could literally see the decision be made. And you see in that scene where she's like, I'm gonna go with him. Like, I can't do this anymore. That's like the magic of Kate Winslet and the magic of Titanic for me, is you see everything in these big movies, the biggest movie you're in. You can get this tiny little moment. It's a dialogueless movie. There's dialogue, but it's all background. You're just watching her watch something else, and you see her make a decision, and then it plays out. You see the decision happen in the next scene. And I just love
Yeah.
those little moments like that. And I think that's what elevates her from, a really strong, good actress to, one of the potential greats.
Yes, I totally agree.
Hmm.
That whole section is so key to the evolution of Rose.
Yeah.
And that line where she says, "It's not up to you to save me, Jack," I think is so
Hmm.
impactful. And just, again, even just her tearing up as she's looking at this man who
Yeah.
seems to be truly head over heels for her and appreciates her for her, I think is just really lovely. And yes, that scene, which I did actually forget before this rewatch, of her looking at that little girl, I think is so key.
Hmm.
But then obviously we have just the best scene in the history of cinema where she takes, his words to heart and goes to see him on the deck at dusk. And it's the two of them, and it's him holding her and saying she's flying. And they're just in that warm glow,
Hmm.
pure movie magic moment that has been parodied 1 million times. But even watching it again, it's just they're both so committed to just like the earnestness of it that
Yeah.
it still plays somehow.
It could be so corny if it wasn't the two of them.
Yeah.
Her lines are like, I'm flying. Like, what a weird ass line for it to be like,
I know.
like there's this music playing, this beautiful vocal of a woman. There's this wonderful sunset. And he's like, look. She's like, I'm flying. It's stupid dialogue. I'll admit it. Like, it's not good. But these
Yeah.
two have, again, it's this like cinematic soulmate energy that it makes sense. It works. It's very, again, authentic. It's real. It feels like it's just these two people that are finally able to just be, because they have been, kind of dodging what they've been feeling from that point in the movie thus
Yeah.
far. And they just finally get to let it happen and let everything kind of go. So it feels wonderful and it feels lovely. And you can't help but just swoon in it. Where if it didn't work, if they didn't have that chemistry or that ethic that they had, or whatever
Hmm.
what happened on that day, it would have been silly. Like, it would have been weird. It would
Right.
have been like Afterglow being like, oh, I'm pregnant. Like, it wouldn't have not worked, But
Right.
something about her, about him, about the sunset, everything just makes sense. They make this cheesy dialogue not cheesy, and it makes it like organic and authentic.
Yeah. And also a line like, "Jack, I want you to draw me like one of your French girls."
Hey, I like
Also,
that. She knows what she wants, It's all good.
yeah, no, it's true. The assertiveness in her voice there is quite striking. Like there's this certainty of being a woman who's like, this is what I want. I'm going to go all in on this
Hmm.
relationship that is blossoming. And even there's so many details in that scene too of her just lying there and fully naked with the necklace, and even like mocking his like serious face and being
Yeah.
like so serious. I love those little details.
Yeah,
And I
and
don't know how much that's kind of improvised or just like her making certain choices there, but you just do fall in love with them.
yeah, you love their love. It has to do with the chemistry between Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio, which is
Yeah.
one of the all-timers. We all know that. And there's something about you feel this, it's this very pure first love, I guess, but you also you see that innocence, you see that. You know that they are these very young teenager-ish people. Like they're late teens, maybe he's 20, I don't know. So but you see that very young supernova of a love where you're feeling it for the first time, where it's just so over the top, you don't know what you're feeling. But you also have this seriousness where you're, yeah, it's the first love, but they think it's it, like it is that Romeo or
Yeah.
Juliet sort of I am just falling into you sort of a thing where there is a seriousness and a maturity. And I think there has always been this maturity with Kate Winslet in particular. She never really
Hmm.
went, even when she was young, like in Heavenly Creatures, there was always this mature, like an olderness to her where she always either played older or had this, more seriousness essence to her that she just has where it works with someone like Rose who is, a teenager or is coming into womanhood. And you see that. You see like she's ready for this new phase of her female experience and you know that she's ready to tackle it and now she's has the confidence because she made this big leap of I'm going to give up my life because I don't want the security. I want to be happy. And she's full throttle and there's something really awesome about that. And I think that works with, her being this having this natural mature essence to
Hmm.
her as an individual, I think.
I agree. Yeah, that's a huge part of it. And I think when we do get the big moment where we hit the iceberg and everything, that is a transition point, really,
Hmm.
of the film, obviously, in many respects, not just in terms of what's happening, but in the sense that she is having to flex different muscles as an actor and really become more of the movie star action
Yeah.
based kind of style, which I don't think she's ever done anything quite like that before, or
Or
arguably
since,
since,
yeah.
to be honest. But you do see like she still has quite a few good moments even in that second half where most of the focus is on just the sinking of the ship,
Yeah.
where like when Cal is slipping the heart of the ocean necklace into Jack's coat to sort of frame him for theft,
Hmm.
and as he's like pleading like to believe him that they're lying, but she's confused, she doesn't know what to believe, but there is like still you see in her face this nagging thing in the back of her mind that like no matter what she does still just trust Jack,
Hmm.
and she just does want to be with him, which is what leads her to trying to find him as the ship is sinking after they're separated.
Yeah, you see that war between, the young Rose that we started the film with, and then the young Rose of her when she chooses to be with Jack. That's kind of at war when Jack gets arrested because she's
Right.
being swept back into, or her mother and her fiance's life, and you really see her, she really has to choose here. And I always saw those two parts of Titanic. The first part is with Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio at the mantle. And when the ship hits the iceberg, they hand the baton to James Cameron and they're letting him kind of take the lead.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
Cameron is putting all of his trust into DiCaprio and Winslet to really sell this love story. And then once the iceberg hits, you see Cameron start to take more control over the actual disaster. And they have done the work to support, the care for these characters and the story and where we are, where now the audience is afraid of what Cameron's going to do to it. And so
Yeah.
and you have to get that transition very well, and you have to have actors that are able to really sell it in the beginning and still sell it and still have that dramatic effect with dramatic irony. We know Rose makes it. We know she's okay, so we all
Hmm.
are still, but we're still worried about her. And she does have these really, you're right, these really great moments. I love the moment where she's trying to get Jack, where it's just her in the water, like up to her waist with the axe, and her trying to
Yeah.
get to it, and she's trying to get to someone, she's trying to get to the axe, and then you see like you don't know it is an act, and then it's just her running down corridors where she's by herself, and the film turns into a horror film, and it's
It
just
becomes like Aliens.
mhm, yeah, like it
Yeah.
becomes terrifying. Like it's really
Yeah.
you're hearing everything, and it's just close up on her eyes essentially. It's not even her
Yeah.
full face, and it's just absolutely terrifying. And you just and you're and Kate did the work in the first part of the film where you're with her, you love her, you're rooting for her, and you want her
Yeah.
to save him, you want her to get to him. It's not anyone else, it's just her. It's like her in a barren ship that is going down. She's on a time crunch. And that's really impressive work for her to just be running up and down. She's swimming in very cold water. And,
Yeah.
you see her physically, shivering and moving and shaking. It's you're on the journey with her. And then when she gets to him with them, those are very impressive moments where you've done the work in the first part. You've established who these characters are, what they love, what they don't love, what they're willing to do for each other. And now you have a director who is ready to test it. And now you have an audience who is on the ride, and everything just falls into place. And even before that happens, when she's with Cal, when she makes that decision of, that she is gonna, well, Cal confesses that he did it, and she had the wonderful callback where she spits in him and says, "I'd rather be his whore than your wife." It's a fantastic screenplay.
What a line.
Yeah, people who say it's a bad screenplay, the way she says it and the face she makes
Yeah, she sells that shit.
sells it. She like,
I don't even care.
she drops that voice register. She's like, "I'd rather be his whore than your wife." And I'm like, you get him, girl. And every time, even to this day, when I saw it in the theater last year when she spits, there's still a round of applause. We are still with her,
Yeah.
like that
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be happening to a film that's 30 years old. We shouldn't be still having that type of reaction. But we
I know.
do, because of her performance, because she sells us on her so easily. We instantly fall in love with her, and we're rooting for her. So that's Winslet. That's not Cameron. That's all her, and that's all her
I
with
agree.
DiCaprio. And for that to be potentially swallowed in a big movie like this is a possibility, and that doesn't happen here because we have an actress that is able to, plant those seeds and still work when we are in a disaster movie now. Like she does it, and she does it damn well.
I absolutely agree. It's such an underrated performance that fully carries this film. And I think when we get towards the end of at least her scenes, because we still have old Rose at the
Mhm.
end, when we have just the true shock and horror of them going through the boat and all the way through with the breaking of the ship in half and then being in the water and the infamous scene of the door and everything that, there's a whole debate with that. I don't want to get into a whole tangent there, but just the level of commitment on her face, like to a certain extent sometimes it truly does feel like those are true real reactions to Kate Winslet just like being in this freezing cold
No, yeah,
water.
the scene, as like I
So
mentioned, where she like drops in, she makes like a like a gasp where like it's
yeah,
so
like that's
cold.
real.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I hear a British accent in there. Like I'm pretty sure like she's honestly freezing. Like it's like not like I hear the voice drop, and like that's just me with my new education now. But it's totally believable with both of them,
Yeah.
all of the actors involved. And even when the ship is sinking, so like they're on a machine, but when like he's like hovering above her, they're on the bow and they're all hanging, and you
Mm-hmm.
just have this mishmash of people and they're all panicking essentially. You see this fear in this woman, like she knows she did this to herself. She was on the boat twice, she jumped off at one point, so she could have been like, this, like she could
Yeah.
have not been in this situation, but she chose to be here because that's what was right to her as a human. Like that's what felt true to her. But she is absolutely terrified. And you see her, like, she has this moment where she's looking next to this other woman who's in the same position as her. She's with
Oh my god.
her, it's
Yes.
this another woman, another young woman with her lover.
Mm-hmm.
And you have no idea where she came from, but they're in the exact same position and they just want to stay with their person for as long as they can. And they're just having Darwinism kick in. And they're both absolutely terrified. And you see that on Rose's face. And you just forget about, Cal and all of that. That doesn't matter anymore. Now it's just about I need to make it through the next X amount of minutes. Like it's pure
Mm-hmm.
survival. And even when she pops out of the water and the panic of, not knowing where Jack is and not knowing where she
Yeah.
is. And she's confused. She's fighting. Someone's trying to drown her at some point, just out of panic. You see the
Mm.
fear, you see the panic, and to be able to track that. And this is the same performance or same character that she was doing as, a coming of age romantic lead story. Like now she has to put all of that on top of I need to make sure I stay alive type of performance, which is, all of these layers and she's leading it, so that's very impressive. And for us to still root for her and still remember where she came from and the journey that she's been on to get to this moment to be like, you damn well better survive. So
Yeah.
again, very
I know.
impressive stuff.
And to have it feel like a true arc and not have it just feel like, oh, well, we're done with the emotional human drama. Now we're just going to focus on
Mm-hmm.
the sinking.
Yeah.
It's a testament not only to the screenplay and the direction and everything, but to her to be able to still track the emotional journey of Rose, even in those survival
Yeah, because
moments.
we've
And
seen
so,
disaster movies like that where, it's about the disaster. And yeah, there is
and that's
characters
it. Right.
involved, but we don't really care about them anymore. We care about, oh my God, it's so
Yeah.
cool that there's an earthquake or there's a tsunami or,
Yeah.
whatever that's happening. But the ship becomes a monster essentially, or the iceberg is the monster and like everything's failing them. And
Mm-hmm.
we're nervous not because there's a really cool action sequence that's happening, but we're nervous because something can hurt Jack and Rose. And we
Yeah.
want them to
This
be
ultimate
together. Yeah,
love.
because we've been
Right.
on the journey with them and we are rooting for them and we love them. And they've been through so much, so they better make it. Like we really want that to work. And the fact that we still have that effect again 30 years after it was made is crazy to me because that's why I don't like to
Yeah.
rewatch films that I love like that because I'm nervous it'll, weaken as I keep watching it. But it doesn't with Titanic. I'm still
No,
root
I
for
agree.
these two crazy kids in love. I think they're crazy now, but I still root for them. I still want Rose to get that accent, smash it, even though that's not a smart decision, but I still want them to do that. And I still want them to, beat that door down with that bench or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
it works. Like, and it shouldn't have that effect, all these years later. But it's just a testament to how great Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio are and how great of a director and leader James Cameron is as well.
Amen.
Yeah.
I completely agree. Yes. She nearly drowned. Kate Winslet nearly drowned in this film. She contracted the flu and she had
They
extreme
all have,
chill,
yeah. Didn't they all have like
you know?
poisoning from something like a
Yeah.
spicy drink? Yeah.
And yet, Kate Winslet survives. She always does. She always has.
She
And she's still going strong.
and she is now,
Just like Rose.
yeah. And she's
She'll
now
live to be
she's
101.
got it. Yeah. She is the certified, water and ice girl now, and she wears that with a badge of honor.
Exactly.
That's why she
Yeah.
broke that, water breathing record for Avatar.
Right.
It works.
God, I love her.
Yeah.
Yes. I think it's time to move on to our winner, unless you have anything else.
No, I'm ready.
Okay. Helen Hunt in As Good as It Gets. So, Helen Hunt wins her Oscar here, and this is the first time in a while where we had someone who was very well established TV star, proving that she was also movie star material, last being Sally Field. Of course, Helen had been in quite a few movies before this, including Twister the year before, also a disaster movie there. But as Good as It Gets is coming out, she is one of the stars of Mad About You, for which she's already won 2 Emmys by the time she wins an Oscar, and she wins another 2 through the end of the 90s. So the late 90s, huge career moment for Helen Hunt. But before all that, Helen Hunt was born in California, so our first American we're talking about today, and she grew up with a father who directed theater, so she also, like a lot of people here, grew up around the arts. She got into the business as a child star in the 70s, doing film and TV. She had her first real noticeable film moment with Trancers in 1984. She was in Peggy Sue Got Married, Next of Kin. She really put in the work until she got her big breakthrough in 92 when Mad About You premiered. So that made her a true star. And by the mid 90s, she's in Kiss of Death and Twister. And very next year, here she is in As Good as It Gets, which is the return to the world of James L. Brooks. We've talked about Terms of Endearment, we've talked about Broadcast News, and now this is his third big Oscar moment. Another comedy drama for adults, and this one taking a little bit more of a sharper edge. It's about a misanthropic writer named Melvin, played by Jack Nicholson, who has OCD, and he always eats breakfast at his favorite diner and only wants to be served by one specific waitress, Carol, played by Helen Hunt, a single mom whose son has an illness, so she's very protective of him. One day, when Carol isn't working, when Melvin is at the diner, he finds out where she lives and tries to remedy the situation by paying for her son to get proper medical treatment. And so Carol's relationship with Melvin grows in some unexpected ways over time. We also have this other plot line of Melvin's neighbor Simon, played by Greg Kinnear, who's gay and gets beaten up at his home. And Melvin is tasked with taking care of his dog and also driving Simon to his childhood home to reconnect with his parents. And then Carol joins them. It gets a little complicated, but let's just jump right in here with Helen Hunt, our winner here. Lauren, thoughts on Helen Hunt overall and her Oscar-winning performance here?
I like Helen Hunt. I think she's so cool. I don't remember where I saw her first. Probably on television. I think she was on an episode of Friends, but it was probably Mad About
Yeah.
You. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah.
We'll be basic. And then my dad, again, he showed us Twister, and I thought she was the coolest bitch ever. Like, I want to
Hell yeah.
be like a cool tornado chasing gal. Like, she's just cool. She's so cool in that movie.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to be her. And I thought I want to be a tornado watcher. I want to like be in a car and just drive around the world and just be chill and cool like that. So I was excited when I first saw this film and when I first realized that she was an Oscar winner. I liked the film when I first saw it. I thought it was very New York. It was funny, kind of. It was feel good. As I've gotten older and rewatched it, I am aware that some things do not age well with it. I know this is a controversial film. I know this is a controversial win. And I know that if this film was made today, there would be massive rewrites. But I do
And
think that,
discourse.
yeah, like I
Online.
do.
Just
But yeah,
saying.
they would always like I know very controversial. It's probably not it definitely did not age well. Scratch the probably. But I think there is a charm to this movie. I think the three leads are very good in what they are giving. I think Helen Hunt has that New York, Brooklyn girl that's very, blunt to the point, but also doesn't really think about what she's saying. She just says it what she is. And I think there's something really nice about having adults just have honest conversations with each other and learn about each other through that process. There's certain aspects of the film that I don't think is needed, particularly when it comes to Helen Hunt's character and Jack Nicholson's character towards the end, but I digress. That's just Hollywood for you. But I think it's a very stereotypical Hollywood comedy that really appeals to actors and writers. It's very 90s Hollywood. It makes perfect sense why this did as well as it did. But there are just moments where you're along the ride for these characters, and there are moments where you just laugh because what they're saying, it's true. And that's because it's funny. Like those are the way like she just jabs right back at him. It's like, what happened? Like, keep going with these compliments. I'm like batting my eyes right now. Like that's just funny. Like, and it's
Yes.
maybe because I'm just a New Yorker and I'm a New York girl that's just I am what I am. I relate to that type of level of comedy. So that works for me personally. But I think it works with, the three of them on those road trips where they're just bantering and fighting with each other and gelling. And I think all three of them become better because of what they've been through. And that in and of itself is pretty good.
Yeah.
So what
Is
about
it
you? Yeah.
as good as it gets, though? Is
Maybe.
the question. Yeah. So I can't say that Helen Hunt is one of my favorite actresses necessarily, but I don't dislike her at all. I think she has this really great, easygoing charm that gives her an every woman kind of appeal. So it's not hard to see why she became a star in this decade. I've talked a lot on this show about how not every actress can deliver an authentic performance as a middle class person or a lower class person, especially those who have been in the business for a long time.
Hmm.
And to Helen's credit, I think, she was acting for a long time before this sort of peak period, but she still has that kind of down to earth vibe that works, especially for characters like this. I think this is a performance and a win that gets a lot of shit, especially because she beat some great actresses, and
Hmm.
Helen Hunt maybe doesn't quite have the legendary status as some of the others we talked about, and because also she's not delivering the kind of commanding or powerful performance that people like to see in this category. But I think what I like about this performance is just how easy breezy it is. Like how she feels so comfortable in this role. It's not the most spectacular role necessarily, but I think she fills it well. I don't think it's perfect. Sometimes some of the choices like she makes to give her a Brooklyn accent, not always successful because it tends to come in and out. But I do think the chemistry between her and Jack is interesting to see how that kind of evolves. I agree in terms of where things end up. It's not necessarily, that doesn't hold up for me. I see where he would be into her more than she would be into him, but regardless, I think she does a lot of good work to ground this film in a semblance of reality, because this is a film that can kind of go off in some odd
Hmm.
directions at times, and it doesn't entirely, like you said, hold up maybe to today's standards in terms of some of the racism and the homophobia and this, even the central relationship here, but she does the job really well,
Yeah.
you know?
Our leading man does not say the nicest things, and we're definitely aware of that. And again,
Yeah,
major
it's
rewrites would have been
established
said.
very early
You
on.
can establish, yeah, someone with very with like moderate to severe OCD is be not as cruel. But
Yeah.
as like again, now that I have this wealth of knowledge with, speech and language and voice, which is what again I'm getting my master's in. I am very into accents now. It's something that I kind of don't like it, but I have this natural second nature where I'm noticing voice work
Mhm.
now when it comes to performances.
Mhm.
And Hunt, it does go in and out, I will agree. But she has this, it's very New York. It's this deep nasality that we all like have this in it. I don't know if you can hear it right now, but my voice is not as high as a normal like stereotypical female, but there is a big nasality that's happening with me. So it's this
Mhm.
weird lower register with some nasal stuff going on, which Hunt is doing in this. That's not her natural
Yeah.
voice. And you
Yeah, she's
really
from
hear,
California.
yeah, like she's very Cali from the Valley, but she is lowering her voice and also really using her nose, which I find
Mhm.
fascinating. And you really get it with her laughs, where she's like, "Huh!" Like it's all coming from
Oh
that
yeah.
nose, which
Yep.
like you really hear. It's back, it's up. So that's fascinating for me now that I know,
Hmm.
characteristics of what she's doing structurally. Like she's actively making muscles do things that are not natural to her, which I find just fascinating about accent work in general, which is why someone like Kate Winslet is a very powerful actor for me. So that's really cool. So that she could have this, essence of, this Brooklyn girl that's just very much there and very much, low and high at the same time. But her character is the audience's eye in. She's the relatable
Mhm.
one. She's the one that sees, the imperfections in our leading man, and we know he's not the nicest guy, and we love that there's someone that can give it to him. And that's the best thing to do with someone like this is to be as abrasive as he is, and you see that camaraderie or affection towards her that he gets, and she's our audience's way. And if she's not likable and if we don't relate to her, which is just a single working mom that's just trying to get the bills met and take care of her kid, it's anyone can relate to that. Anyone wants the best for their loved ones and just wants to make it to the end of the day, and she just so happens to deal with this impossible, horrible man on top of everything else. And she does it with a smile because that's just who she is as a human. So it's easy to love her. It's easy to get on her side very, very, very quickly.
Yeah, I would agree. I think she does have a strong kind of authoritative voice when she is kind of assert when she needs to assert that, like when she is fighting for her kid and when she is
Mm-hmm.
setting boundaries with Melvin and when he gets irate that like she's not the waitress at the diner, and so he again goes to find her address and visits her at her home, and it's like she's stressed enough with trying to take care of her
Yeah.
son and she doesn't need this aggravation. So like she
Mm-hmm.
really is putting up those firm boundaries very strongly. She does make a strong impression there. One thing that did kind of hang me up a little bit just in watching this is, and it's kind of unfair because like I have this prior knowledge of the fact that this was not originally intended for Helen Hunt. It was originally for Holly Hunter. And I do think that there is a little bit of that kind of spunky energy of that broadcast news Holly Hunter vibe that James L. Brooks is infusing into this character, that like through some of these scenes I can just kind of picture the Holly Hunter version of this. And I think you'd have to make some changes. She probably wouldn't be solidly like Brooklyn, New York, so much
Yeah.
as like she's from Georgia but now she's living in New York kind of
Yeah, it's like
thing.
she still has to be Southern, man. There's no way. It's just
I
like,
know,
yeah.
yeah, but that's just like there's that little thing in me that's just like I wonder what that version could have been. Like Holly Hunter playing off of Jack Nicholson, I think would have been even more kind of electric for me personally compared to Helen Hunt. But I do think, you know, the fact that Helen Hunt really did fight for this role, I think you can kind of also see that in the performance too, and how she is kind of fighting for, you know, to be seen on the same level in a way of Jack Nicholson, even though it's impossible to like compare to a titan like him. They
Mm-hmm.
are still co-leading this, and it feels pretty even.
Yeah, and she's smacking it back. Like she is a
Yeah.
good scene partner in this
Mm-hmm.
film. And she, as someone who is, the audience's eyes and is very much reacting to, she's the straight man in this comedy duo that
Yeah.
it is. But she is definitely as strong as he is with the material that she's given. Yeah, it's not as showy as his is, obviously, but she is able to find like these nuggets where I mean, I personally found new things. I loved the moment where the doctor comes into her apartment and she's just shocked and
Yes.
panicked and she's going through all of these different emotions and her
Mm-hmm.
realizing her kid's going to be okay. That's the first time that's ever happened to her. And the scene where she's just looking and then she goes like with her hands like doc, like just
Mm-hmm.
that word. And the way she does it with the voice, it works. And that's one of my favorite moments of her performance is just her exhaling for the first time because she's so tight the entire time. She's so nervous and she just again wants to make it through the day. She deals with him because she just has to. And now she can just, breathe a little bit and maybe sleep a night and maybe go on a date and, have life start again because she's been on
Mm-hmm.
pause this entire time. So
Yeah.
those are little moments that I'm finding in her performance, as an older person since I first saw it and as someone with, more knowledge about filmmaking and screen acting, is I see those and I find new things in this performance. It's probably been because it's been probably a decade since I've seen it,
Yeah.
but I am finding these really nice nuances where she's playing with it. She's making choices and she's holding her ground in scenes, without Nicholson, which says a lot because it could have been the Jack Nicholson show, but she,
Mm-hmm.
has this strength and she does have this big force and she is able to hold it and have that trajectory without the entire film, honestly.
Yeah, I love that whole doctor scene.
Yeah.
Harold Ramis as the doctor there, just the rush of relief on her face.
Hmm.
It's truly like that Love Simon moment. Like, you can breathe now, Simon. Like,
Yeah.
you can breathe now, Carol.
Yeah.
And it's just like she's has so much excitement and possibility after a certain point. But I do appreciate that in like I think it's the next scene that she has a bit of a come down moment of realizing that, oh, maybe I'm indebted to this man now
Hmm.
who I don't really like, at least at this point in the movie, and kind of think that like he's kind of a creep ultimately. And so the whole scene of her like walking over to his apartment in the rain on a mission to like set things straight and lay it out for him and be like, I'm not going to sleep with you. I will never, ever, not ever.
But I
um,
think those like that's where her comedy acting chops really do
yeah,
shine. Like
that's
she
that
is
sitcom
she's like
basis.
there's the
Yeah,
sitcom skills coming in handy. Like
right.
she is funny in this. Like she nails
Hmm.
those jokes, even when she has, the letters of thank you, and she's like, "I'm just going to read you this one part about
Oh
this, and I'm
yeah.
also going to read this. 'Cause I'm just going to start from the beginning." Like
And
it's
it's
just
just
like
the
it's
papers
funny.
are
Like
all
it's
over
just
the
all they're
place.
all
Yeah.
over the place. It's like I'm just going to start at the beginning. Dear, like, and it's funny. Like it really does land, and she knows exactly where to put the breath in to let the audience like take in. She knows when to start again. She's using those things where she knows because she's a sitcom actor that worked in front of a live studio audience. She knows what gets laughs, and she's able to play off of that and really infuse that in here. And most of the laughs come from either her line readings, from her remarks. It's not from what Melvin's saying. It's not from those offensive comments at all. It's from her. It's from her yapping back with her comebacks. It's from her
Right.
reactions, just facially. And it's from her actions. Like her in the rain, I thought was hysterical, honestly. Like the
Hmm.
way she can physically provide those reliefs too. And even when they're in the car, she's like, "No, I'm gonna pull over, give you my full undivided attention." That didn't have to be, you chuckled a little bit because that the way she
Right.
just does it is funny. And if I was her, I wouldn't have done it for laughs. I wouldn't have gotten a reaction from that. But she finds the funny in, very mundane life. And as
Hmm.
someone who, I'm from New York, so I know these people who are like neurotic and very busy bees, for her to be like, open the door and be like, "What?" Like, I know those people. And she
Yeah.
gets that. And she gets the funny in, those types of, New York people who are just keep going. When she's with her son and he's like going into the hospital and he's like, "So are you going to be at war?" And she just screams, "No." And it's just like, it's funny. Like, there's big dramatics because her son's sick, of course, but the fact that he's still on this one thing and she just gets on with it. And there is some sort of level of comedy that she can play with where someone like her who has been on a sitcom stage for X amount of years is able to, transfer those skills here. And I think she succeeds there.
Yeah, I definitely thought of that sitcom timing through a lot of the film. There's another line where, Melvin is at the diner and he's just like, "I'm going to give my queer neighbor a ride to Baltimore." And she just takes a beat and she's like, "Okay." Just like those blunt kind of
Hmm.
reaction moments are so good. Um
Yeah, even in during where he's starting to draw her again, he's like, "Hold it." And she's like, "Huh?" He's like, "Hold it." She goes, "No, no, 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 no." I'm not that extrovert. Like I put that front on. It's a very bad impression. I do it like all the time. Like the way she just like says it, very
yeah.
honest, but it's funny. Like the way she goes, she's like, "Huh?" Those are
Mhm.
the funny, again, those nasal low New York things is the way she just reacts to it is just
Yeah,
very,
very
very funny.
specific.
Yeah, very
Mhm.
specific. And then
Yeah.
when he comes back, he's like, "You slept with her?" He's like, "It was better than sex. It's exactly what I need." And then like scruffs his hair. And he's like,
Yeah.
"Huh, I like her." So like the jokes are there and it makes sense. And it's all her, really. Like that's where the comedy is. So I think she is
Yeah.
kind of essential in this trio.
Yeah, I agree. And I think she also nails some of the dramatic moments that she gets too. Like, I do think it's kind of unavoidable that we have to talk about this one scene of going back to the thank you note, that we get a scene of her at the table writing the note to him. Kind of hard to deny that this is like her big Oscar scene when you just look at it. Also, like, we got the underscore in it. It's this big moment. It's where, she's talking about feeling guilty because now she's thinking about herself for a change, because like her son's being taken care of now, and she talks about, like, she tells this story about giving an old couple a dirty look on the bus or something, and how she's bitter that the doctor is married, and it's like she starts weeping and she's just unraveling in this moment. I think it's a well written scene. Maybe parts of it are slightly over the top for me at a certain point, but it is this very real thing that she is experiencing, of finally having time to breathe and to figure out her priorities when she's not preoccupied with taking care of her son or getting to work on time or being able to pay these medical bills or dealing with shitty customers. Like, she can finally just be Carol
Yeah, she
again.
has potential, which is exciting. And I love the way that that is written because there are still jokes where, now I'm bitter that he's married. Like that's a good joke
Yes,
where, you
exactly.
have that exhale where you can chuckle, which is what life is. I don't know about all of you guys, but when I'm upset, I sometimes make, a stupid joke, just be like, "And this happened." So like
Right,
that's just what
exactly.
she does. And it allows the character to exhale. It allows her as an actor to, take a beat and keep going with the scene. So it's a very well written monologue. Some of her, very dramatic, like crying moments are over the top. It's not one of my favorite moments of hers.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's you understand and you feel for her and you're like, it's okay. And I'm not a parent. I don't know what it's like to have this child or this very small innocent life that you're in charge of taking care of forever. And then the stress of that is I cannot imagine. I bet it's crazy. So
Hmm.
the fact of, having to deal with a chronically ill child that is totally dependent on, medicine and healthcare and all of that stuff. And to be able to have that sudden realization of he's getting better, he's going to be okay. You can now think about, going out on a date or getting a hobby, like all of these different possibilities are there, and that can be overwhelming. And I was more interested in that reading of it, of her being like, what can happen? And now I can actually look for a life partner instead of just like finding a guy to sleep with now. Like it's more about this is real. Like I can continue with my life. So that was very impactful for me, like those little
Yeah,
moments.
I agree. And I wish it was kind of just about three people trying to figure their lives out. And it was just like, this is this one moment in time where we can all kind of converge and just like figure our shit out and bounce ideas off of each other and just like try to figure this out rather than have it go down a very traditional romantic route.
Yeah.
But I do think she does have moments in there, like when they have their little date moment after the road trip, and he has that iconic line of being like, "You make me want to be a better man."
Like, I'm sorry, I
um,
swoon at that. It's a good line and
no, and her
it's
reaction
cheesy.
to it
Yeah.
is
It's the
perfect.
way he says it, it's the way she reacts to it. It's the
Yeah,
little like piano in the background. And I'm sorry, it works. Like it just does. And
that is a James L. Brooks line for you.
it
Yep.
works. And
Yep.
you can't help but be like, oof, that was a good one. That was a really good one. Did you hear that one, guys? So like you can't help but just be like, okay, now I'm invested. Now I'm like a little bit like this is
Yeah.
kind of
Against my better
gross.
judgment,
Yeah, like
I'm
I'm just
invested.
as soon as like she was like, I'm kind of into him, like, don't you say that. That's not true. And it's just like
Like, it's a great line, but come on.
we can just be friends. Like it's good that he's changing to be better for like friendship and like platonically, like he'll support
Yeah.
you. But no,
Yeah.
but again, that's just Hollywood for you.
Yeah. So, not the biggest fan of kind of like third act stuff here. Don't want to delve too much into it. We're already running long anyway. But yeah, I think it's a really solid performance that, she does get some criticism for just for the fact of who she beat and all this stuff
Yeah,
that we
it's
might get
criticism.
into,
Yeah, it's
but
criticism for, the
in the
film itself.
genre.
It's not
Yeah.
her performance in it or her
Yeah.
character even. It's
Yeah.
the fact, and we'll get into it when we talk about the actual race. It's a
Hmm.
relatable character. I'm not shocked that it's
Absolutely.
the winner.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm not shocked that she was the front runner, in the
Hmm.
televised things as well. It's
Right.
very relatable. It's very Hollywood. It's very
Hmm.
actor. So it makes perfect sense in my mind. I'm not shocked that she is the winner. And I
Yeah.
think she puts a very good performance. And to have this major crossover is pretty awesome in my, especially in the 90s, is pretty crazy. And
Hmm.
she holds it. She's holding her own against Jack Nicholson, which is like, I can't do that. Like that's pretty freaking stellar.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's get into this Oscar race here. So, just to talk about these precursors, it's a fun race. Again, I hate when there's full sweeps, so it was
Oh
fully
no,
split up.
it's a race.
Critics, yes, Helena Bonham Carter won the LA Film Critics, the National Board of Review, and the Critics' Choice Award. Julie Christie won the New York Film Critics, National Society of Film Critics, and the Independent Spirit Award. Afterglow certainly has an independent spirit. Judi Dench won some other critics' awards. And then Helen Hunt won the Golden Globe for Comedy Musical and the SAG Award. Judi Dench won the Golden Globe for Drama. Everyone except for Julie Christie was a Golden Globe nominee. Also, Judi Dench won at BAFTA, which was after the Oscars, but still, I think, an indication of her having the British support, perhaps. So, another year where no one really swept necessarily, which is a good thing, but with SAG becoming bigger with each year now, that combination for Helen Hunt of Golden Globe and SAG was enough to make her a frontrunner. Judi Dench also considered a strong contender. Helena Bonham Carter was kind of written about as like dark horse critics pick kind of thing, and
Yes.
like that would be a cool win, but like it's probably not going to happen. So yeah, that was the lay of the land. So why do we think Helen Hunt was our winner here?
I mean, you said it. It's that Golden Globe SAG combination. It's that televised thing. This movie was successful. It made a lot of money. I know Titanic is,
Extremely.
the big like
Yeah.
blockbuster juggernaut of the year, but As Good as It Gets was very, very successful. And I always see this as, Titanic being, the under the belt kind of fan favorite when it comes to the Oscars. And As Good as It Gets is that above the line. It's that screenplay. It's that, I know Cameron does get the direction, but this direction was very popular. This film itself was very popular. The acting is very popular. They don't like to, and they know they're celebrating Titanic for a lot of things. So
Yeah.
it makes sense that this type of film is what's resonating with the Actors Branch for nominating her and for the Hollywood Academy that it was at the time. I do love that it was a race. I don't think she was the slam dunk. Dench did have her, chomping away. So that's exciting for me as I was like researching to see the actual, who got what. And when it comes, that comedy drama, this is still in that dramedy area where she has stuff to work towards. And I think that does it. I think she's having that crossover moment. America loves her. Her show was very popular. This film itself was very popular, and everyone loved the film as a whole. So they loved that trio. They loved the film. They loved her. They loved Nicholson. So again, it makes sense why an American branch would vote for her. Like it's very Hollywood.
Very much so. I
It's very
agree.
Hollywood.
Yes. I think there are a lot of factors in her favor. One, not only is she the only American in this race, but she is very familiar, very popular at this time because of Mad About You. The film, as you said, like I think it was a top 10 hit of the year.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, it was huge, especially for a movie like this. And I think there is just very easy likability factor, which was big at this time in Best Actress.
Hmm.
Susan Sarandon wins. She's playing a nun. Frances McDormand is playing this like friendly cop. Gwyneth Paltrow and Shakespeare in Love. Like, it's very easy to appreciate these characters and these performances. And for Helen, especially, there is that appeal of being someone who is in everyone's living rooms
Yeah.
every week. Maybe
And
it's
she
not
makes you feel good. Yeah.
right, she does. And winning Emmys. She's in Twister. She's proving she's capable of being a movie star and hanging with Jack Nicholson and delivering on a somewhat equal level. So, yeah, I think the film, the likability of the character, her own popularity, maybe it's not the most technically impressive here, but I honestly don't think that that was really the case for any of the acting winners this year when you think about it. Like, they went with
Yeah.
a lot of easier, kind of
They went with
popular
actors.
choices.
Yeah.
Jack
Uh,
Nicholson, Robin Williams, even Kim Basinger to a certain extent. It's kind of a piece, I think, when you look at it.
they went with the actors. And we always say, even to this day, a good performance in a great film will always overpower like the great film and the good movie because
Yeah.
when we're
Yeah.
always looking at who's going to win, particularly a best actor or a best actress, you want to see who is winning these really big above the title categories. And I know a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people might be like, but Winslet's in the best picture winner. Winslet's in the best picture winner. She didn't win a damn thing during this entire
Not
awards
a
run.
thing.
You would say she was probably number five. So
Yeah.
the fact that Hunt is in a very Academy friendly favorite film for acting, for writing. Titanic is very much for, yes, the picture and the grand scope of things, but they're really going to sell you on, the effects of the size of the film, of how the film was itself made, and not really the actors itself.
Right.
As Good as It
Exactly.
Gets is a writer actor movie.
It's so SAG coded
Yeah.
to me. Like, I can just picture so many actors in the Screen Actors Guild just loving this movie and wanting to like be in it, wishing they
Hmm.
had parts like
Yeah.
this. So I think that helps.
Hmm.
And I also think there is this embrace of American film that feels a little bit like a reaction to the independent wave of the previous year. I'm just gonna throw that out there because a lot was made of that, kind of like the European
Hmm.
British thing coming to America and sort of taking over the mainstream fare. This is like, oh, we're back. Like, this is this
Yeah, and
is
then they
America.
nominate two of our nominees are Imperia dramas and they're Brits.
Yeah,
So one of them
but
is a queen. So like it's just like
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. There's this feeling like maybe these aren't what the critics would vote for, but like we just want to feel good and embrace what's
Mm-hmm.
popular.
They want to feel a
that's
good
the
movie.
that's the vibe of all the top 8 categories, I would argue.
Yeah.
So, and Helen's speech was good. She shouted out her fellow nominees. She said she watched Mrs. Brown 3 times. So, yeah, that was Helen Hunt, and she would be popular for a few more years after this before kind of gradually fading. Still having a solid career. She did come back for a supporting nomination for The Sessions in 2012. We'll see if there's a third nomination in the future, but late 90s, Helen Hunt fever.
Yeah, and all of the other besides all of for Hunt, Dench, and Winslet, they're all back. They all come back and
Yeah.
they all have these crazy careers that still keep going to this day. So it's not, the end of the world that Hunt won. I'm glad she has this, and I'm glad that this happened to her. I hope she comes back for something, but I don't see her, going on the Oscar stage for
Yeah.
the rest of her career. But I wouldn't be shocked if Dench, Carter, or Winslet have another opportunity,
Yeah.
personally.
I agree. Okay, let's get to some Twitter questions, shall we?
Sure.
Yes. All right. Let's start with Ben Roberts, who said, "Is this the most forgettable win of the 90s?" Ooh, spicy.
An
Well,
entire decade?
ironically, it seems that we have already forgotten Jessica Lange in 1994,
Oh, no.
which I, yeah, talked about just a few weeks ago. Blue Sky, not a film that a lot of people are throwing on these days. So, no, I don't think this is the most forgettable win of the decade. This movie, is among the most watched of the films that won Best Actress this decade. It was a huge hit. I don't know how much that still is in the public consciousness since it has been a while, but like, I don't think this is a forgotten
Yeah, no,
win
I don't think so
necessarily.
either. And I think general audiences love this film, which is probably
Yes,
why Helen Hunt won as well. It's a very
exactly.
digestible, everyone loves this type of movie. I
Yeah.
think my parents still love it. I think all of my non-film crazy friends find enjoyment in it as well. So
hmm
I think people do genuinely like it.
Joey Gentili said, "Oof. Personally, my least favorite lineup of the 90s, which is odd when 1992 exists when it comes to bad lineups. Why is it that after two stellar back to back years, we go back to a slump?" I don't think this is a bad lineup. I think we have mostly good performances here. Like I said, maybe there isn't one that is like reaching the greatness of 95 or 96. I don't know if there's a concrete reason why. There's certain years where there is just when we look back on it,
Yeah.
it seems not as strong.
That
But
yeah,
I
it's
don't know
not
if
up
that's how
to
it felt at the time.
yeah, it's not up to us for like I guess time is weird, but it's weird to judge films come out certain years which ones are better than others, and I get campaigns are a thing. Here in the 90s they're less so as obvious as it is now. Like it's definitely
Yeah.
a structured thing these days. I think it's a good lineup. I said it's kind of, as I said in the beginning, it's good, it's okay. It's reflective of the time. We had this capital B blockbuster. We have these period dramas that do resonate well, and we have that capital H Hollywood movie that, is very writer director friendly. So I think it makes sense for the year that it is
Yeah.
representing. But it's normal for us to have these like big stellar years and then have a little bit of a dip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also we have Afterglow, which is its own separate thing.
The
But
lovely.
anyway, um, MJ said, "If this were the best actress lineup today, given the current voters' tastes and habits, who would win? And does Kate being in the clear Best Picture frontrunner change the results?" I kind of think
I think
Helen
it
Hunt still
does.
wins.
Yeah, I think Winston may win something, and I think
Well,
it
yeah,
wouldn't
I
be
think
as
so.
overlooked as it was. I'm glad she didn't win this Oscar because she absolutely killed the 2000s. And
Yeah,
I don't know if she wins Best Actress at this age for this film. We get like Little Children or Eternal Sunshine or
yeah,
Revolutionary
true.
Road. And I love the choices she makes in her 30s. And she is just great in all of those performances. So yeah, I don't know if that would have happened if she won this award this early because you kind of see that with young starlets sometimes. But she may have been a little competitive. She may have gotten I think she would have gotten the Globe. if this
Hmm.
was now, just
Interesting.
to
Yeah.
put that star power up there. And
Yeah.
they
True.
love to have that Star is Born moment with
Hmm.
young ingenues, and she definitely is in this film. So I think that may have
Yeah.
happened instead of
Yeah.
Dench, but I still think she wouldn't win personally. But I think today she would be a little bit more competitive.
Glorfindel of Gondolin said, Helen Hunt's win is one of my favorites, as making the jump from TV to cinema is a rare feat, and she won for a comedy. I wish Mary Tyler Moore could have won for Ordinary People. Why do you think Helen was able to overcome her TV origins to pull off a win here?
I think it's the right role. I think it's a comedic role. I think we're mixing, the drama and the comedy, and she uses those skills. I think it's not something like Mary Tyler Moore. It's phenomenal, but it definitely is different than what the
Yeah,
public knows her as
right.
and knows that she can do. I love that performance personally, but
Mm-hmm.
this is very familiar for Helen Hunt's audience and for the public's perception of who Helen Hunt is. This makes sense for, her quote unquote brand or her quote unquote character that she has in Hollywood at the current time. So I think
Yeah.
that really helped her here.
And just for the TV part of it, I think we're gradually seeing a shift towards accepting that, like, no, TV is not inherently inferior to film. And it's not like, oh, who is this TV star thinking she's a film actress now? I think we're finally starting to gradually shift away from it feeling so separate in that way, which I think is obviously a good thing.
Hmm.
Diego A. Cabrera said, how did As Good as It Gets manage to win actor and actress? Why hasn't that happened again? What would need to happen now?
So many things would have to happen for that to happen now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love that these two are our winners. I love that they're both best actor, best actress. That in and of itself does not happen
Yeah. This is
anymore.
the last
Straight up.
time.
Yeah, straight
Yeah.
up, like it does not happen. There's
Mhm.
always someone knocking someone into supporting, even if they're not in the
Ugh.
same gendered categories, which is annoying. I think there personally can be a male and female lead. I even remember, and I know that we're like talking about, I'm going to use Broom as an example because Jacob Tremblay was in
Oh
supporting
my
actor.
God.
And I know that
Yes.
I'm using the child thing too as well, but those two are equals personally, in my opinion. So the fact that they're in two separate categories, the kid could have obviously been in lead actor the entire time if they wanted to
Mm-hmm.
do. And I think that films should do that. I know it's purely strategy and purely, category strategy because there are no rules about, who goes in lead and who goes in supporting. The actor chooses it and they think who is gonna win. Even with, Denzel Washington and Viola Davis in Fences, she won
Mm.
the Tony for Best Actress, but she knocked herself down into supporting for, I guess she
For an
thinks
easier win.
yeah, it was an easier
Yeah.
win. And it would have been so cool for them both to be nominated, in the leads because they are co-leads. And that's not a negative, but people are definitely looking at, they're contemplating, do I want to be considered, a leading actor, or do I think I'm more likely going to win if I'm put into supporting,
Yep.
which I think is unfortunate. I think you should just be wherever you want to be or be where the role is. But I would love to see a best actor, best actress one. But that's like a lightning in a bottle moment for
Yeah.
today.
It's so many factors have to line up. Both of the performances have to be high caliber to a
Hmm.
certain degree, and the competition has to be weak enough, quote unquote, in
Yeah.
both categories for
They're not
both of them
gonna
to
knock
win.
each other out. Yeah, there's like
Yeah.
everyone, that's another thing where we'll vote for one, we won't vote for another. We both so
Right.
like there's so many
Mm-hmm.
factors where I would like to see it just for the fun of it.
I
But
know.
I
Yeah.
don't know anytime soon.
Fritz said, which other sitcom actress should have an Oscar?
Hmm.
I mean,
I
Mary
would
Tyler Moore,
marriage,
but
that would be
that's
nice.
a,
Yeah, like
you
that's the
know,
thing. Like they don't make modern day sitcoms anymore. Like we need a good sitcom.
I'm going to say I think we could reach a point of Julia Louis-Dreyfus getting an Oscar. I think that is
Ooh.
within reason for that to
Jen
happen.
Aniston was really close one
Oh, yeah,
year.
for
Yeah,
Cake.
for
Yeah.
Cake.
Remember Cake? You know, Melissa McCarthy was on Mike and Molly.
That's
She
true.
kind of straddles the line between film and TV. I'm kind of just thinking of like past sitcoms. I'm not really even thinking of anyone
I
current on a
know.
sitcom, which is unfortunate. But Candice Bergen, she had Murphy Brown. Could see her randomly getting a supporting actress win at some point.
Hmm.
Tracy Ellis Ross, I thought was great in American
Yeah,
Fiction.
she can do something.
You know,
I like the Tracy Ellis Ross. I'm not a huge
hmm.
TV takes me. I am not good at it. There's so many
I
episodes,
know.
and I'm always so it takes me years to finish television, so it's just hard for me. I
Yeah.
like the Julia Dreyfus stuff. I think
Mm-hmm.
I could see, one of the Friends girls, either Aniston or Lisa Kudrow, in a
Lisa
supporting
Kudrow
actress
feels, yeah.
situation.
Mm-hmm.
Christine Baranski, does she count with sitcoms? I don't
Sure.
think so. But like I could
Kinda.
see Christine Baranski winning an Oscar.
For sure.
'Cause
Mm-hmm.
she's got it in her. I really think that
She's
can
got it.
happen.
Yeah.
She definitely.
Both Fritz and How Dare You want us to figure out whether either Holly Hunter or Melanie Griffith, who was also in the running to play Carol in As Good as It Gets, what would have happened if either of them were in the role? Would they win? Would they be nominated? What would happen?
I don't know. Maybe, probably. I could
I
see
don't know if Holly Hunter wins again because she had won just
it's
recently
I
for the
know, but it's
piano.
so different.
Yeah.
It's so different. Maybe. I don't know about Griffith. I could see that's weird. I could see Hunter
Yeah.
because it is so different from the piano and it's what we associate Holly Hunter with, and to see that drastic change with her would be interesting. And we're used to broadcast news and all of that stuff. I don't know. What do you think?
You know, like you said, it is very different.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if she would win again. I mean, Jodie Foster had won multiple times recently, so it's possible. And if they had like really great chemistry, her and Jack Nicholson, I could
Yeah, it
certainly
depends
see
on the
it.
chemistry.
Melanie Griffith, I don't know if that would have the
No.
right kind of chemistry, unfortunately. Kyle said, "Is Helen Hunt's win simply a display of patriotism?" God bless America. Helen Hunt all the way. It's
Uh,
not simply that, but
yeah,
it's not
that would be.
not that.
Can you imagine
I'll
like
just say.
people in the Academy being like, "A vote for Helen is a vote for America." We're giving Best Picture to a Canadian. Have to do it. I don't know.
Christoph said, rank the 7 films that have won Best Actor and Actress. It Happened One Night, Cuckoo's Nest, Network, Coming Home, On Golden Pond, The Silence of the Lambs, As Good as It Gets, from best performances by the 2 leads combined to the worst. Okay, I'm just going to run through this really quick. I don't want to spend too much time on it.
Okay, go.
My number 1, easily Silence of the Lambs, Anthony Hopkins, Jodie Foster,
Okay.
the GOATs. Number 2, I'd say Network, Finch and Dunaway. Number 3, It Happened One Night, classic pick, Gable and Colbert.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, I would say On Golden Pond, which is just pure sentimentality on my part with
Yeah, it's a
Katharine
cutie.
Hepburn and Henry Fonda. Yeah. 5, I would do As Good as It Gets. I really like both performances, but I wouldn't call them like outstanding in the way that the other 4 are. 6, I would say One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which is my controversial pick because I am not fully in love with Louise Fletcher there. So that's that. And my 7 would be Coming Home, which is Jon Voight and Jane Fonda. I would say Jon Voight is solid. Jane Fonda has done much better work. So, yeah, that would be mine. Did you have a favorite of those combos?
I would probably put Golden Pond higher.
Okay.
Maybe it's just like, again, maybe sentimental, and it's just they're mammoths of actors, so they deserve to be
Yeah.
higher. That's just who they are. So
Mm-hmm.
I would probably make them like number 2 or number 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Andrew Carden said, rank the 4 Best Actress nominees from James L. Brooks films. Okay, so we got Deborah Winger and Shirley MacLaine from Terms. We have Holly Hunter from Broadcast News, and we have Helen Hunt. For me, I would go the 2 Terms women first.
That's
Shirley
correct.
MacLaine first, then Deborah Winger. Then I would do Holly Hunter number 3, and unfortunately, Helen Hunt has to be 4th
But
here.
that's the correct order.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't change that at all.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
So we agree.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting one from Christoph. As of today, Helena Bonham Carter is the only one of these 5 actresses without an Oscar on her shelf. Do you think her time will still come? What kind of performance do you picture her winning for?
It better come. I want that woman to have something.
Mm-hmm.
I want her to do contemporary. I know
Yeah.
she gets a lot of critical acclaim and awards acclaim for period stuff. She's that's just what works well with her when it comes to this. But I really want to see her do something contemporary or something like, I think she would work really well with someone like a Fincher again, where she just can be, this cool, this very much who she is and put that
Yeah.
into her creativeness. She hasn't done that in a very long time, since probably like big Hollywood studio epics like, Harry Potter and all that stuff. But to see her do like put some gothic,
Mhm.
contemporary, dark, sexy role or like a nice character piece would be really, I would love to see something like that.
This might be controversial because this is a very controversial director for certain
Hmm.
people, but I want to see Helena Bonham Carter work with Emerald Fennell.
Ooh, that would be good.
I think she would write
She
something
would,
very juicy
yes,
for her.
that would be, yeah. No, I want that. Yeah,
Just saying,
that would be good.
floating it out
Let her
there.
be like flamboyant and colorful and just go
Yes.
for the, yes.
Scene stealing supporting
Hmm.
role. Let's go.
Let's do it.
Owen Daly said, seeing as Helena is the only nominee not to have a win, which of her co-nominees' roles would you cast her in? So which of these other roles? So we got what? Queen Victoria, we got Rose, Afterglow, Phyllis.
She could do the queen, obviously. I low-key want to see what she would do with something like Afterglow for some reason.
That would be fun.
Like that would be
Yeah.
fun. Rose isn't her style, in my opinion.
No.
She would have to age 10 years for as good as it gets. Like
Yeah.
the age that she is now,
Right.
or
We don't have
at that
to.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I assume we're not thinking about like exactly in 1997,
Yeah.
but yeah. Cody Derricks said, since it's the first and last time you can talk about Helena Bonham Carter, what was her best chance at a second Best Actress nomination that didn't happen? I really had to think about this and put in research when I saw this question because I was like, I genuinely don't know. And
Like
as crazy
Sweeney?
as this sounds, I kind of want to say Sweeney
Sweeney?
Todd.
Yeah, like
Yeah. Johnny Depp got
I
in.
would
She
say
got a Golden
Sweeney.
Globe nomination. I feel like 2007 was
That would have
kind of
been
a
cool.
weird year. Yeah. And I loved her in that. Even
No,
though,
that's like
people have
her.
thoughts about the singing, but like, I enjoyed it.
No,
It's
but yeah.
very character based singing, I
And
think.
that's good with her. We want a good character piece for her.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I agree with Sweeney.
Greg Creeman said, Kate's plot in Wings of the Dove is one of the most sinister and cynical in movies, but I never dislike Kate. Is this because of the writing, HBC's performance, or am I just a terrible person? Also, should HBC's hair have its own category? First of all, yes, Helena Bonham Carter's hair always deserves recognition. But yeah, I think her performance has a lot to do with why you feel that connection to Kate and why you don't like despise her.
No, yeah, you understand where she's
Yeah.
coming from, which is, I think it's more her than the writing.
Yes.
But I do want to read the book.
Yeah. Gordon said, Afterglow goes out on a bizarre Tom Waits cover of Somewhere from West Side Story. What other musical theater standards should Waits have covered over the end credits for the other 4 movies here? Fun question.
Like America for as good as it gets. Like
Yeah, right. I spent quite a lot of time on this, I must say, because I just love how specific this question is.
It is.
I want to just I know you're a theater person, so I want to field these for you here. For the Wings of the Dove, I went with What I Did for Love.
Ooh.
From A Chorus Line.
Ooh.
Because she did some things for love.
Yes, she did.
Right? For Mrs. Brown, I went with Not While I'm Around from Sweeney Todd. I just thought that would be sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a sweet one.
It's told from the perspective of Mr. Brown.
Yeah.
For As Good as It Gets, I'm going to say Being Alive from Company.
That's funny,
There's just something about the energy there. Yeah. For Titanic, I know there was a Titanic musical, but like, I'm going to go with Memory from Cats.
There's a show off Broadway right now called like Titanic, which is like this really
Titanic, yes.
Yeah, this awesome parody of it, which is absolutely hysterical. Like
yeah, I've
loved
heard.
it.
Cody Derricks said, is Afterglow, aka Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf for Dummies, one of the worst movies ever in this category?
Yeah.
I really struggled pretty hard to get through it. At least of the 90s. It's Yeah, bottom tier
I don't. Again, the only reason someone is watching this movie today
is for
is
these
is
purposes.
for
Yeah.
this singular purpose.
Yes. So you are one of the few.
Mhm.
Amar, hi girls, hi Louise. They all just kind of want to know, was it sympathy or name check or just like happy that Julie's back that she got this nomination? Like, did that have more to do with it than the performance?
It has to, right?
That's part of it.
It has
Yeah.
to. I think there's other performances of the year that probably were in
Yes.
better, definitely better films, but she has the name. I think the name will always do something when it comes
Yeah.
to the Academy, especially in the late 90s. It's not that far away, so it's like similar people. So I think yeah, name always means a lot.
Steve, no, not that Steve, the other one, said, with the acclaim Dench received for Mrs. Brown, why didn't she do better with the major critics awards? I don't know. You'll have to take it up with those critics awards. They went
She
with
got
Helena Bonham
some,
Carter,
yeah.
you know, as some of the major
But that makes
ones.
sense. Like that it's like
Yeah, I
she's the
think so
critic's
too.
ingenue. I think that makes perfect sense.
She's the cool pick.
Yeah, she's the cool new gal.
Fritz said, to say it with the words of Will Ferrell, Judi Dench, where did she come from? Is there any pre Mrs. Brown work of hers you would recommend? Well, I don't know. Not to be like a filthy American, but I don't have a lot pre Mrs. Brown that I can recommend necessarily. I mean, you've said like, her theater work
Yeah, I know the
certainly,
theater.
but in terms of film, she was fun in A Room with a View with her fellow dame Maggie Smith.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of experience pre this with Judi.
Yeah, not on film, but you can find like Shakespeare clips on YouTube somewhere.
Yeah.
They're deep in there.
Ronaldo Sosa, this will be your first of 5 times discussing the incomparable Judi Dench. But do you think that if her iconic 1978 film stage performance as Lady Macbeth had been released theatrically, she could have gotten a nomination for it, a la James Whitmore for Give Him Hell, Harry? Sure, why not?
Yeah.
I know 78 was very competitive, but there was a precedent. There's been filmed stage plays getting in for Oscars, so I'm going to say yes.
Hmm.
Ben Roberts said Claire Danes, Winona Ryder, and Gwyneth Paltrow supposedly turned down the role of Rose in Titanic. What would have happened, what would have been the best alternate casting there?
Can you imagine Winona Ryder?
That would be
Like
interesting.
I can't.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just gonna say Gwyneth Paltrow because they make sense, and the fact that
Yeah.
she replaced Winslet in Shakespeare in Love.
Right.
Yeah, so that makes they have a
Real
they,
sliding
yeah,
doors
they're
moment there.
similar. Yeah, it's kind of like with the Emmas with La La Land and Beauty and the Beast, how they just
Oh
switch, and then
yeah.
they did it again
Yep.
with Little Women. It's just
Mm-hmm.
I that makes sense. I would say
Yeah, I
Paltrow
think so too.
would have done it.
Yeah. Lila said, imagine if Gwyneth Paltrow had been cast in Titanic, would she have won this year? And if so, then what happens the following year? Is she still nominated for Shakespeare in Love? Does this lead to a potential win for Kate Blanchett or Fernanda Montenegro? Well, I'll get to that next week.
Yes.
But I don't think Gwyneth would have won if she was in this role. Is she nominated for Shakespeare? Yes, I would assume so. I don't know if she would even have time to film Titanic and then Shakespeare in
Yeah,
Love, to be
I
honest.
think they
But
switch. I think Winslet does Shakespeare. I think she
wow,
keeps it. Yeah.
Kate Winslet wins an Oscar for Shakespeare in Love. Imagine it.
Back to the
Um,
periods.
yep. Richard Thompson said, if Kate Winslet had not done Sense and Sensibility and therefore had been a true discovery for the Academy in Titanic, does she win a la Vivian Leigh in Gone with the Wind? Interesting theory. They do love a discovery, but I still don't think it would have been quite enough. It's just not the kind of performance that
No.
wins like in
And
lead.
it's getting everything. And like it's funny because if she wins, or if the only two awards they miss are the actors, it's actress and
Mm-hmm.
supporting actress. And if they win, it's an all-time Oscar winning film. It beats the record. And I don't know if
Yeah.
they wanted that to happen.
Right.
I think they like the tie because at the time it was a two-way tie and then Lord of the Rings happened.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something about them not wanting to do that. And when it's an epic this big, they don't look at the actors for some reason. And she's young. They're seeing her as this is her moment, and now she's going to quote unquote prove herself to be, the actor that can still
Right.
lead a performance and lead a film without all of the big Hollywood set pieces around her, which, she does because she's back, like 5 times.
Rob Montoya said, if Titanic would have bombed like many were predicting it to, would Kate have been nominated and would she have the career she has today? Well, I definitely don't think she would have been nominated, but I think she still would have recovered. I think she is resilient and she is a survivor, just like Rose.
Yeah, she'll find a way.
She always does. Ghost of Glenda Miss Jackson, if you nasty, said, with Titanic fever this year, how was Kate not along for the ride with it? We already kind of talked about that. The other question is, would she have won for the reader if she won here?
I think, again, I'm glad she didn't win because I love what she did in the 2000s. She absolutely killed that decade. She put up great work. Most of her nominations are from that decade. Her win is it's a career win. I think it's a culmination of
Yeah.
all of what she did. I think maybe she would have been better and would have chosen to just do Revolutionary Road instead of The Reader. But yeah, I think her win is a culmination of everything that she did up until that point. So
Yeah.
it may have affected it, but no, we'll never know.
Yeah. My question is, would she have even done The Reader if she already had an
Oh
Oscar?
no, yeah, she wouldn't. Yeah, she like
Just
definitely
saying.
she read the book. She was like Holocaust woman, like complicated.
Mm,
God,
yes. Putting it all together there.
Holocaust
Yes.
drama. They like
Yep.
that.
They sure do. David Pusak said, put the other Best Actress nominated characters and their male co-stars in the infamous door situation Rose and Jack were in. What would they do? Wow. Well, we don't want to take too long on this, but I think the Wings of the Dove pair
I
is
would love
like
to see what happens with them.
survival of the fittest. Like neither of them is sacrificing
No,
one
yeah,
for the other.
Kate staying on there, and
Yeah. Yeah,
she
yeah.
she won't have a breakdown until she's like safe on the other boat. Then she
Right.
like realizes what's
There we
happening.
go. Yes, exactly. Afterglow, like probably same deal. I don't
Doesn't
think they're
care.
saving each other. Nope. Mrs. Brown, like Queen Victoria, is not even going to be in that situation to
Queen
begin with.
Victoria's on a lifeboat.
She's on a lifeboat all the way to shore by now.
Mm-hmm.
As good as it gets, I think Melvin tries to just like find a door for himself.
Oh no,
just
he drowns them. Yeah.
or maybe just sacrifices himself, or I don't know. I don't even think he gets that far. I think he just
I
dies
don't
on
think
the
he gets
ship.
on a boat in general. I don't
'Cause
think he gets on a
that's
ship.
true.
He's
He's not even
like,
in this situation. He
not
doesn't want to
going.
get wet. Celluloid Siren and Diego Cabrera said, who would be cast now in these roles? Recasting question here.
Well, everyone always says Timothy Chalamet and Florence Pugh are like the equivalent of Leo and
Mm-hmm.
Kate. So I think they can do Titanic. I think Timmy can do Leo or Jack. I think she can do that. So I'd say those two would be
Yeah,
good.
I know it's very obvious,
It's
but
obvious,
Saoirse
but like
Ronan is perfect for
Saoirse
that.
Ronan, yeah, she would be better at Rose, honestly. Florence Pugh
Um,
for Kate then.
oh, yeah, I
Florence
could see
Pugh for
that.
Kate, I would say that.
Mm-hmm. I thought of Kristen Scott Thomas for Afterglow
Ooh.
as a possibility. They just seem similar, her and Julie Christie.
Mm-hmm.
So that's more of a aesthetic thing, maybe. But Olivia Colman and Mrs. Brown, maybe too obvious, but she's kind of like the go-to queen,
No, yeah,
or
that
like
would
an
be
Imelda
good. Yeah.
Staunton.
Who would
Uh,
be I'm trying to
I have
think
an
who would be as
interesting
good
one
as
for
it
as good as it
gets.
gets. I am gonna go for a
Okay.
wild card here and say Regina Hall.
Ooh.
Kind of like a support the girls kind of Regina Hall,
Yeah, no, she can do something like
bringing
that.
that energy. And she's funny and she's
Mm-hmm.
dramatic. I think she could do it. I don't know, just an idea I had.
No, that would be good.
Yeah.
I was thinking like a Kristen Wiig or
Oh yeah.
yeah, someone I don't know.
Okay. Chels said, this is a fun one for us. Well, I guess we know which character would win Survivor. Which, yes, Rose. Who would be great at challenges? Who would they vote out first? Who's finding idols?
Ooh, I love this question. Maybe a little controversial. I think well, here's the thing with Rose. I don't think she would win her first season. She would
Hmm.
do very well in a returning season. I think she's learning the game on her first season.
So she's Parvati. Got it.
She's Parvati, yeah. And then she like kills
Okay.
it. Yeah, she has
Yeah.
to learn, And then like a couple of years later, she's back in New York. She's a single tough girl, and yeah, she gets back to
Yes.
the jungle. Yeah, she's Parvati. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Kate would win.
She's very devious.
Yeah, Kate
Yeah.
would win.
Hmm.
Um,
And she's probably finding idols.
yeah, I think Rose would do well in challenges.
Yeah,
Queen
she's
Victoria is getting voted out first. She's not helping with the
yeah,
shelter.
she's
She's not getting
no.
wood. Like
She's not even interested in playing the game.
she's just hungry. Like she's just
Yeah.
she's not
Yep.
doing anything.
Mm-hmm. Juan Carlos Ojano, Pam Grier, and Jackie Brown. Please discuss. Thank you. Yes, our big
Yes.
snub of this year. She's incredible. I think she's so cool, and she gets to show her dramatic chops here. I just threw it on this morning just because I wanted to just. I didn't like fully watch it. It was just kind of on in the background, but just to remind myself of her greatness. That final scene of her just driving away after getting one over on those guys,
That would have
saying goodbye
been
to
such a
Robert
cool
Forster's
nomination.
character. I would have loved to be able to talk about that performance.
That would have been
Instead, we
so
have
cool. We have
Afterglow.
Afterglow.
Thanks, Academy. Christoph also said, where the F-bomb is Pam Grier. She should have been a shoo-in this year. Yeah, I just don't think the Academy was all that enthused about Jackie Brown. I know people do revere it nowadays, but I think people
Yeah.
were definitely cooler on it at the time. People felt like it was a step down from Pulp Fiction, which happens.
And that's always hard with I know it's not a sequel, but it's a comeback from a director who he's
Yeah.
very much doing what he is. He got a immense acclaim for one film, and usually in the sophomore film or the follow-up, it's never received as high as the first
Jordan
one.
Peele.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Emerald
same with
Fennell.
Greta Gerwig. Like it's always the same one,
Yeah.
and it's the sophomore. The next one is just not always the best. Even especially if it's thematically or tonally similar.
Right. Yeah, and I think that is what happened
Yeah.
with Jackie Brown, which
And
is
it's
unfortunate.
definitely a cult film. That's not his, instant hit film.
Yeah. And, I also don't know if the Academy had the same kind of reverence for Pam Grier that Quentin Tarantino
Mhm.
did, or that the people who saw her in her movies in the 70s felt for her.
Yeah.
And I think for as much as a force she is, there is a kind of subdued quality to the performance sometimes that doesn't always work for the Academy. So that maybe does explain it
Mhm.
a little bit. Andrew Carden said, was Jodie Foster for Contact or Pam Grier for Jackie Brown? 6th.
I love Jodie Foster in Contact, and I love Contact.
Yes.
That's probably
Sci-fi.
yeah.
Your fave.
I'm a sci-fi genre girl.
That would have been fun to talk about
That
too.
would have been so fun. It's honestly probably should I dare say my favorite Jodie Foster performance? I love that
Wow.
movie so much, but it's top 3 Jodie Foster
Better than
performance.
Naiad.
I mean, the abs do so much for Naiad. So that's top
True.
3. I said top 3. You
Those
don't know
Diet
what's 2 and
Cokes.
1.
That's true.
I would say one of those 2. I would definitely say a 6.
Yeah, definitely.
But there
I
is,
think Pam Grier personally, but yeah.
there's genre bias with, sci-fi. That's what I was gonna
Yeah.
say. So, and Foster is everywhere. So I kind of get that she's not here. But God, Contact,
Yeah.
what a great movie.
Yeah, it's a banger. Yeah.
Mhm.
But I think Pam Grier,
Yeah.
she got a Golden Globe nomination. She got a SAG nomination.
Yeah,
so,
the
like,
writing's there.
Speaking of which, Christopher Perkins, why hasn't the Academy given Pam Grier her flowers yet? She defined an entire era of film and is an icon. Where's her honorary Oscar? Rude. Yes, it is rude. Great question. I do think she seems like a great candidate for an honorary Oscar. So I'm on board with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. Declan Cashin said, wow, the 97 Comedy Golden Globe category was stacked. Also, Helen Hunt is there. Nice shade. How cool would it have been for any of those other 4 to get an Oscar nomination? So just for context, the other 4 were Joey Lauren Adams in Chasing Amy, Pam Grier and Jackie Brown, Jennifer Lopez in Selena, and Julia Roberts in My Best Friend's Wedding, which is like, wow, we used to be a proper country. Like, what a category.
I always love the comedies with the actors just to see what they do.
Yeah.
It's always fun about the Globes.
Again, imagine having us break down any one of those. Would have been so fun.
Mm-hmm. It's always fun. I love them.
John T said Film Twitter has declared Pam Grier as sixth place here, but was she? Jodie Foster and Jessica Lange for 1,000 Acres. Julia Roberts had a campaign for My Best Friend's Wedding. I still think it was Pam
Yeah,
Grier. Even if
if
it's like consensus, it still feels right.
yeah, if Roberts got in, that's just star quality alone. I would be very
Yeah,
impressed
yeah.
by her, but
Yeah.
it would be yeah.
Andy Bayless said, The Ice Storm is an underrated classic. Which actresses from the film would be in which category, and would you nominate them? I don't know if you've seen The Ice Storm from Ang Lee, but I think it's very great, underrated suburban drama there. Joan Allen, I think, would be in lead, Sigourney Weaver in supporting. So, and I would have probably nominated both of them personally, but have you seen The Ice Storm?
I have. Yeah, no, I've seen it. Yeah, I agree with that placement. I don't know if I would. I mean, yeah, I'm always taking Afterglow out and putting someone in. So I would.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I have to. So yeah, I would concur with that, but I also would probably put Pam above because
No, I would
more
definitely
genre-y.
put Pam
Yeah.
and Jodie. So maybe I wouldn't nominate
And
Joan
Jodie.
Allen, but Sigourney Weaver in supporting, I think it was from. Okay, last one here from Joey Gentili, another recasting one. So put on your thinking cap here. Recast these 90s Oscar talents and Karen Black in the roles above. All right. So Karen Black, Lorraine Bracco, Kim Basinger, Samantha Morton, Gwyneth Paltrow. Well, another deranged list from Joey. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, can we agree to give Gwyneth Rose? Because we said that previously.
Yeah, I think so.
Cool.
I'm putting Lorraine Bracco in as good as it gets. I think she's got that brassy New York, New Jersey thing going for her. That's perfect. Samantha Morton, now I could see doing Mrs. Brown.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
Kim Basinger is tough. Like, I don't know if she fits in any of these, but I guess The Wings of the Dove or maybe Afterglow seems a little bit more.
Put her in, I say Afterglow.
Yeah.
Put her in Afterglow.
Yeah.
Just to see, I feel bad for everyone we put in Afterglow.
I know. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Karen Black, though, I mean, she's a little bit Afterglow feeling too. Yeah, that's tough. Tough group. Anyway, I think it's time for our final segment where we will reveal who we think was the runner-up of this Best Actress race. Lauren, who was the runner-up to Helen Hunt here?
Well, judging by this big race, and it honestly was a race, I do think our runner-up is Dame Judi Dench.
Okay.
Because she won other televised programmings. She won the BAFTA. She was most competitive. And I think even though Carter has other awards, she just mainly has, the critics. So I think she's definitely the critics' choice. Yeah. And I think having that Golden Globe drama does something, and it does put more weight onto just, a critic's choice and a lot of other critics when comparing to Carter. And even though BAFTA was, again, later, I think that proves that it had the older audiences and the British audience, because the Brits did know her and they were very supportive. So I think when it comes to those two Brits, particularly to steal that demographic, I think Dench is getting that demographic.
Yes, I completely agree. Judi Dench, I think, even for as chaotic as this race can look on paper, I think it was definitely Judi Dench as our runner-up here. Like you said, Golden Globe, BAFTA is a powerful precursor combination to begin with, but I do think just in terms of a performance, like it's such a classic, traditionally dramatic kind of performance that can win in this category sometimes. So, I think as an alternative to like the very Americana style of As Good as It Gets, I think maybe some more European, voters and types of that sort could rally behind that. Okay, well, last question for you. Who would you have voted for from this lineup?
I would have voted for Kate Winslet because she is a winner in my book, even though she is probably number 5 when it came to the votes by the end of this night.
Probably.
I'm going to root for her, and I will probably always vote for her when she's in this competition. But I really do think she does a hell of a job performing in this film. I think it's a spectacular performance, and I think it just shows what she's capable of and the star that she will soon become because of it. So
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
love Rose. It's one of my top Kate Winslet performances. I think it's in my top 5, so I would happily vote for her here.
I love it. And I loved all your reasoning, which you
Hmm.
also said previously. I could tell you're passionate about this performance, which I love. And I think it deserves that credit.
Hmm.
I would not have voted for Kate Winslet, even though I love her. I would have voted for Helena Bonham
Yeah.
Carter. I would have been with the cool kids in the critics groups
Oh,
being
you are
like,
cool.
Helena Bonham Carter, she's doing such interesting work and really elevating and doing different things with, like, you can just imagine different actresses approaching that in such a more basic way
Yeah.
than what Helena Bonham Carter does. And so yeah, Helena Bonham Carter is my pick and my one and only opportunity to vote for her in Best Actress, and I'm taking it.
Emerald
So there you
Fennell,
go.
get on that. Write that
Right?
script, baby.
Manifesting. Yep.
Hmm.
Okay, well, on that note, Lauren, thank you so much for this epic Titanic-sized episode. Very appropriate
Always.
considering the topics. So truly, thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. I love being on the show. So thank you for always, thinking of me and letting me come and play.
Yes, always fun to talk acting with you. So where can people find more of you on the internet?
You guys can find me on the Twitter at Lauren LaMango. I edit, write, and podcast for Next Best Picture, so you guys can catch me over there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And thank you all so much for listening. You can find me on all platforms at Kevin_Jacobson. The show's at Oscar Runner Up on Twitter, Instagram, and the Runner Up is rate, review, and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you liked what you heard, go to patreon.com/andtherunnerup is, where you can hear a lot of bonus episodes. Next week, we will be breaking down the Best Actors lineup of 1998, where the nominees were Cate Blanchett in Elizabeth, Fernanda Montenegro in Central Station, Gwyneth Paltrow in Shakespeare in Love, Meryl Streep in One True Thing, and Emily Watson in Hillary and Jackie, with the winner being Gwyneth Paltrow. Should be a good one. So with that, thanks again, Lauren,
Thank you again. Thanks for having me.
and I will bid you all adieu.